Chapter 533. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind, and her black hair was tied up simply. There was a faint smile on her face without any makeup, and she was devastatingly beautiful. If it wasn't Chu Luyue, who else could it be? The warm afterglow fell on her body, her face, and her eyes were bright and resplendent. For a moment, many people were stunned. Who would have thought that such a slender and weak-looking woman would actually win first place in the Wanjun competition? As soon as Chu Luyue came out, she felt all kinds of gazes looking at her from all directions. She blinked her eyes and calmly glanced around. Only then did she realize what was going on. It seems like it's because I'm the last one to come out? But there doesn't seem to be such a big reaction, right? Chang Wanzhou walked over. When Chu Luyue saw him, the corners of her lips curled up subconsciously. You didn't. I was late. Chang Wanzhou spoke stiffly, but his expression was a little tense. Chu Luyue was stunned for a moment before she understood what he meant. Is he blaming himself for finding her too late? You're not late. Chu Luyue shook her head firmly. The Tianling God realm was so big. Chang Wanzhou must have spent a lot of effort to find her. Moreover, although she had stayed in the crater for a long time, she actually knew that Chang Wanzhou had been waiting for her outside. Even until the end, he had been fighting for her. Chu Luyue felt that Chang Wanzhou had done enough. She didn't expect him to think that he was too late. Thank you, little Zhou. Chu Luyue smiled at him and said softly. Chang Wanzhou suddenly trembled, and a look of shock flashed across his eyes. He looked at Chu Luyue as if he wanted to see through her, but also as if he was looking at someone else through her. Chu Luyue was a little surprised. What's wrong? You don't like me calling you that? Chang Wanzhou clenched his fists tightly. That's what she calls me too. Chu Luyue immediately guessed who he was talking about. There was only one person who could make him care so much. If you really mind, I won't call you that in the future. After this incident, Chu Luyue felt that his relationship with Chang Wanzhou had become closer, so he thought of calling him that. However, she was not in the mood to fight for anything, especially with a person who might not even be alive. Chang Wanzhou didn't say anything for a while. Finally, he shook his head. It's fine. She won't mind. If she didn't mind, then he wouldn't mind either. Chu Luyue knew exactly what he was thinking. Okay. Then I'll call you Xiao Zhou from now on. You can also call me by my name. Chang Wanzhou nodded hesitantly, but didn't say anything. Chu Luyue did not force him. After a long time, this child would naturally come around. Chu Luyue. Suddenly a familiar voice came from behind him. Chu Luyue turned around. Elder Duanmu. Elder Duanmu Chun looked at her with a complicated expression. In the end, he gave her a thumbs up. Congratulations. You're much more powerful than we imagined. You deserve to be number one. Chu Luyue also laughed. Elder Duanmu, you flatter me. Luyu was just a little lucky. Elder Duanmu Chun shook his head and stroked his beard. You don't have to be too humble. So many people have been defeated by you. That's enough to explain the problem. At first, they didn't dare to believe it. But the truth was right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. This Chu Luyue indeed had endless potential. Who knows what kind of underhanded methods she used. Elder Qiushi, who was at the side, suddenly said in a strange tone. Chu Luyue's smile didn't change. She pretended not to hear it. Anyway, the results were out. She was already the biggest winner. No matter what others said, it was useless. Why should she care? Elder Duanmu Chun looked at Elder Qiushi disapprovingly. Even if he didn't like Chu Luyue, he shouldn't have said that in front of so many people. It was really too petty. However, when he saw Chu Luyue's nonchalant expression, Elder Qiushi was even angrier. He couldn't help but raise his voice. Chu Luyue, didn't you hear what I said? This voice attracted many people's attention. The surroundings fell silent for a moment. Countless pairs of eyes moved back and forth between Chu Luyue and Elder Qiushi. Elder Qiushi, was he planning to find trouble with Chu Luyue? Chu Luyue smiled faintly. Elder Qiushi, the competition is over. What do you want me to say? Elder Qiushi frowned. Naturally, I want you to talk about how you got first place. You're the one with the lowest cultivation level among the contestants. If you didn't use any tricks, how could you win against so many people and become first place? Actually, This was what many people wanted to know. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. I don't understand what Elder Qiushi is saying. I'm indeed the one with the lowest cultivation level here, but I'm not the weakest here. I believe you were already very clear about this during the qualifiers, weren't you? Elder Qiushi's expression changed. Chu Luiyue had beaten Zhao Yunji until she couldn't retaliate. As a result, Zhao Yunji's injuries hadn't healed yet. The strength that Chu Luiyue displayed in this competition was indeed not weak. Moreover, I don't know why the others were eliminated before me. Don't tell me you want me to ask them one by one how they were inferior to me? That is really difficult for me. Chu Luiyue said with a troubled expression. This time, Elder Qiushi wasn't the only one with an ugly expression. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm asking you to explain your situation clearly. What does it have to do with others? Elder Qiushi hurriedly reprimanded him. Chu Luiyue was clearly deliberately provoking a fight. There were still many contestants around, as well as the forces behind them. Wasn't Chu Luiyue making things difficult for him by saying this? Elder Qiushi, I think you seem to have overlooked something. The place we're going to is the Tianling God Realm. That's the place where the Taizu of the Tianling dynasty passed away. It's sacred and honorable. Not to mention me. Even the others wouldn't dare to use any dirty tricks there. Are you suspecting that there's a problem with the Tianling God Realm, or the Taizu? The corners of Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly, as if he was talking about an ordinary matter. However, Elder Qiushi's heart shook violently, and the wrinkles on his old face also trembled. He couldn't bear this accusation. You don't talk nonsense. When did I mean that? Chu Luiyue looked at him with a half-smile. Only then did Elder Qiushi realize that he wouldn't be able to clear his name, even if he jumped into the Yellow River. After all, he did say that he suspected Chu Luiyue just now. He originally just wanted to vent his anger, but he didn't expect Chu Luiyue to be so sharp-tongued. At the side, Elder Duanmu Chun couldn't stand it anymore and finally spoke up. Chu Luiyue, Elder Qiushi didn't mean that. He's just shocked that you got first place. Don't take it to heart. With that, he took a step forward and shouted in a deep voice. I announce. The person who got first place in this Wanzhong competition is Chu Luiyue. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 534. His deep voice was full of vigor, and it instantly reverberated throughout the entire square. It landed clearly in everyone's ears. Chu Luiyue smiled, and didn't harp on Elder Qiushi's mistake. She looked up at the black jade board floating in midair. There was only one name left on it. Chu Luiyue. The competition has ended. Everyone can go back and rest today. Tomorrow morning, all the major sects in Xiling City will send people to wait for everyone in Exilely Garden. Those who haven't decided which sect to join can go back and think about it today. The corresponding rewards will also be given out tomorrow. Elder Duanmu Chun's words made many people react. That's right. There's such a thing. Before the competition started, it was said that those who participated in the Wanzhong competition had the right to choose a sect. Now that the competition had ended, it was indeed their turn. The square quickly became noisy as people started to guess which sect these people would choose. Especially those with the best rankings, they would definitely be the targets of all the major sections. The few elders then kept the teleportation array. Chu Luiyue took a look and retracted her gaze. The changes in the Tianling God Realm obviously didn't attract their attention. Little Zhou, let's go too. Chu Luiyue said and walked down the stage. Chang Wanzhou followed behind obediently. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. What's going on? Why do the first and second place seem to have a good relationship? Previously, when Chu Luiyue left with Chang Wanzhou, it didn't attract much attention. But now that everyone's attention was on them, it was very surprising. These two didn't seem to know each other before. Why are they suddenly so close? And it seems like Chang Wanzhou listens to Chu Luiyue very much? Haha, doesn't this mean that the two of them will choose the same sect? I wonder which sect is so lucky to get these two top geniuses at once. Hey, didn't you guys realize that the two of them seem to have broken through in the Tianling God Realm? Seems like it's true. Chang Wanzhou was a rank 6 warrior. Chu Luiyue also broke through to the 4th order. Everyone else who went and came out with serious injuries. But not only were these two not injured, they even made a breakthrough. Comparisons are odious. Chu Luyue and Chang Wanzhou heard the discussions around them clearly, but they didn't take it to heart. Chu Luyue felt a familiar gaze land on her, and she looked up. It was Jian Fengqi. Why was he here? Ever since Jian Fengqi sent her to Mu Mansion, it was as if he had disappeared without a trace. Chu Luyue didn't need to think to know what he was going to do. It was really strange that he would come here. Jian Fengqi waved the bone fan in his hand at Chu Luyue and smiled proudly. Chu Luyue thought for a moment, then walked towards him. Greetings, young Master Jian. Chu Luyue bowed politely. Jian Fengqi turned his wrist and waved the bone fan lightly, stopping Chu Luyue's movement. Now that Miss Chu has taken first place in the Wanzhong competition, I should be the one bowing to Miss Chu. Yuan Jinghong secretly curled his lips when he heard this from behind. Miss Chu. He was so polite now, and there was no trace of the pride he had when he called her girl earlier. As long as he was in front of a girl, Jian Fengqi would always put on airs. Chu Luyue blinked. What do you mean, young Master Jian? Jian Fengqi's lips curled into a sinister smile. Shilling City opened a bet for this Wanzhong competition, and I bet on you to be first. Chu Luyue immediately understood. No wonder Jian Fengqi was in such a good mood today, and even came here specially. She must have helped him win a huge sum of money. Chu Luyue also smiled, her eyes curved. Young Master Jian is too polite. You even came here specially to support me. I've never valued money, and you've helped me a lot before, so I only want 1/10 of it. If you give me more, I won't take it. Jian Fengqi's smile froze on his face. What? Chu Luyue asked in confusion. Young Master Jian specially came here to tell me this good news. Isn't it to split the money with me? Jian Fengqi wanted to bite off his own tongue. This girl is doing it on purpose. She's clearly extorting me. Actually, I'm just... Jian Fengqi couldn't continue halfway through his sentence. There were so many people around them watching. Although he liked money, he couldn't disregard his dignity as the young master of Dragon Teeth Mountain. Countless gazes converged on him, like a small mountain pressing down on him. Chu Luyue, who was opposite him, smiled as if teasing him. Young Master Jian, with your status, you definitely wouldn't come here empty-handed to express your gratitude, right? Jian Fengqi felt his heart bleeding. With great difficulty, he gritted his teeth and said, Why would I? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have won. It's only right that I share it with you. Chu Luyue's smile was especially pure and sincere. Then Luyu will accept deferentially. Thank you very much, young Master Jian. Jian Fengqi's words seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps of his teeth. No, thank you. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have come. In a moment of happiness, he actually forgot what a ruthless person this girl was. Yuan Jinghong, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. From the initial shock to the final heartfelt admiration. If it weren't for Jian Fengqi's strong killing intent, he would have given Chu Luyue a thumbs up. Amazing. Shiling's tyrant, Jian Fengqi, was arrogant, domineering, and unbridled. He had always been the one bullying others. When had others ever squeezed him dry? Chu Luyue actually took away so much money from him. It was simply unbelievable. He now seemed to understand why Chu Luyue was able to get first place in the Wanzhong competition. She was amazing. Chu Luyue glanced at Yuan Jinghong, and as expected, he was still as stupid as before. This look of admiration was really familiar. Oh right, when she dealt with Jian Fengqi in the past, Yuan Jinghong would always look at her with this kind of gaze. She really didn't know how that cunning old fox Yuan Wei could have such a son. Sensing that Chu Luyue was looking at him, Yuan Jinghong actually felt a little nervous, and hurriedly introduced himself. Hello Miss Chu. I'm Yuan Jinghong. Chu Luyue smiled politely. Greetings, young Master Yuan. Seeing that she was about to bow, Yuan Jinghong hurriedly stopped her. You can't. Since Jian Fengqi didn't accept her bow, he didn't have the guts to do so. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows slightly, but she didn't insist. Yuan Jinghong chuckled, revealing his big white teeth. Miss Chu, I really admire you. As he spoke, he moved closer and lowered his voice. Actually, if I didn't take the initiative to ask this time, This kid actually planned to hide you. Miss Chu. I've known him since we were young, but this is the first time I've seen him so concerned about a girl. Chu Luyue slowly raised her eyebrows. There seemed to be something wrong with it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 535. Yuan Jinghong seemed to have misunderstood something. Young Master Yuan. Chu Luyue was about to explain when she heard a voice from the side. Ms. Chu. Chu Luyue turned around and saw that it was Duan Ziyu. During the competition, Duan Ziyu had been waiting here and didn't leave at all. After the results were out, he was shocked for a long time and came later. I'm here to bring you back. Yuan Jinghong was stunned. Duan Ziyu? Why are you here? Duan Ziyu was Mu Qinghe's confidant. They had met many times and naturally knew each other. He's here to bring Chu Luyue back? Back where? Duan Ziyu said calmly. Of course, I'm waiting for you. As he spoke, he looked at Chu Luyue again. Lieutenant is in the residence now. If he knows that you got first place, he'll be very happy. Chu Luyue thought to herself that Mu Qinghe wouldn't be happy or unhappy because of this. He had always been reserved and rarely wasted time and energy on unrelated people or things. Even if he cared, it should be because this result involved a deeper problem. Even though she hadn't gotten to the bottom of it yet, Mu Qinghe clearly knew some inside information. But she obviously wouldn't say this out loud. She just smiled faintly. Luckily, I didn't disappoint him. Chu Luyue then bade farewell to Jian Fengqi and Duan Ziyu. Just as she turned around, before she could leave, Yuan Jinghong shouted. Wait! Chu Luyue looked back. Young Master Yuan, is there anything else? Yuan Jinghong looked at her calm and composed expression, and felt that something was wrong. Why you want to follow Duan Ziyu back to the Mu residence? Why Yuan Fengqi ah? Yuan Jinghong cried out in pain, and looked at Jian Fengqi angrily. He was speaking up for me. Why did he start a fight? Jian Fengqi couldn't be bothered to look at his stupid face. He couldn't help but regret bringing him along. There's nothing else. You guys can leave first. Jian Fengqi said and turned to leave. Yuan Jinghong quickly followed. What's wrong with you? Why did Chu Luyue leave with Duan Ziyu? He was Mu Qinghe's man. Isn't this the same as openly snatching someone from you? Jian Fengqi said lazily. First, she's not one of my people. Secondly, she can go wherever she wants. It has nothing to do with me. Yuan Jinghong was heartbroken. Mu Qinghe has always been at odds with you. Now that she's bullying you, you don't care at all? Jian Fengqi stared at him. What are you doing? Yuan Jinghong was a little nervous. Jian Fengqi let out a long sigh and walked forward. What was wrong with him? Why was he friends with Yuan Jinghong? Yuan Jinghong looked at the two of them hesitantly. In the end, he still followed Jian Fengqi. Hey, what did you mean just now? Make yourself clear. In fact, Chu Luyue and Jian Fengqi didn't take this matter to heart. But they didn't know that this scene was seen by everyone else. Jian Fengqi and Mu Qinghe were fighting again, and it was because of a woman. West Hill was going to be lively. At this time, Chu Luyue had no idea what kind of rumors would spread. She took Chang Wanzhou and followed Duan Ziyu back to the Mu residence. But in her heart, she was thinking about something else. She couldn't stay in the Mu residence anymore. Staying in the Mu residence had its benefits. At the very least, it was very safe. In West Hill City, almost no one would be bold enough to break into the Mu residence. But it was very inconvenient for her to stay in the Mu residence. If it were ordinary cultivation and medicine refinement, it would be fine. But there were too many things to do. If she continued to stay in the Mu residence, there would be too many concerns. She had to find another place. Fortunately, she had a lot of money now, so she had a lot of choices. Tianling Palace. Clearwind Palace. This was the residence of the Tianling dynasty's emperor, Shang Guanyu. Since he fell into a coma more than a year ago, he had been recuperating here. Clearwind Palace was heavily guarded. Now only the third princess, Shang Guanwan, could enter and leave this place freely. As for the others, even the royal family, if they wanted to enter this place, they had to go through strict checks. In other words, they had to get Shang Guanwan's personal order. At this time, night was about to fall. A tall figure walked out of Clearwind Palace. The light from the lanterns that had just been lit shone on his face. It was an elegant and handsome face. It was Jiang Yucheng. It was already early winter. Perhaps it was because of the cold at night, but his face looked a little cold. Sun Qi, who was waiting outside the palace, quickly went up to him. Eldest young master. When Jiang Yucheng saw his strange expression, he asked, "Why? What's wrong?" Sun Qi paused for a moment and said softly, "Eldest young master, the Wanzhong competition is over." Jiang Yucheng frowned slightly. So sudden? He thought it would take another 2 or 3 days. Today, he came to visit the emperor and stayed inside for a long time. He didn't expect this to happen as soon as he came out. Sun Qi explained, "Yes. The last few people came out almost one after another, and the winner was quickly decided." Jiang Yucheng asked, "What's the result?" Sun Qi wanted to say something but hesitated. Jiang Yucheng frowned even more. Sun Qi bent down and said softly, "Chu Luiyue got first place." Jiang Yucheng was stunned for a moment before he subconsciously said, "How is that possible?" As soon as he said that, he knew that his words were meaningless. Sun Qi couldn't be lying. Then, Chu Luiyue really defeated all the competitors and became first place. "Her Yuan meridian is clearly," Jiang Yucheng muttered softly, but he quickly swallowed the rest of his words. But the doubts in his heart were even stronger. It shouldn't be. Chu Luiyue's talent was not bad, but she only had an intermediate Daijing Yuan meridian. She was the worst among the remaining people. Everyone else could be first, but she was the least likely. "But, does the third princess know about this?" he asked. Sun Qi said, "She should know." The competition ended in the afternoon. He had been waiting here for Jiang Yucheng for a long time. There was no reason that the third princess didn't know. Jiang Yucheng thought about it and agreed. Shang Guanwan was very concerned about this matter. Although she didn't leave the palace, she had already sent people in private. She should know about what happened in Xuanji Square. Jiang Yucheng tidied up his clothes and walked forward. Sun Qi followed behind silently. The two of them quickly left Qingfeng Hall. However, he didn't walk far before a palace maid walked towards him. Seeing that palace maid, Jiang Yucheng's eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. The palace maid walked directly in front of Jiang Yucheng and curtsied. "Prince Consort, the third princess invites you." Although it was invite, it was obviously impossible to refuse. Jiang Yucheng said, "Lead the way." "Yes. Prince Consort, please." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 536. When Jiang Yucheng arrived at Huayang Palace, Shang Guanwan was waiting for him. "Yucheng, you're here." Once Shang Guanwan saw him, she immediately walked forward happily and planned to directly lean into his embrace. Jiang Yucheng silently took a step back. "Greetings, third princess." Shang Guanwan missed him and pouted unhappily. "What are you doing?" Jiang Yucheng said, "My marriage hasn't been finalized yet. The princess and I are not yet married, so we shouldn't meet in private at this time. Everything still needs to follow the etiquette of the palace." Shang Guanwan chuckled and reached out to pull his arm. "Yucheng, this is Huayang Palace, and there are no outsiders. You don't have to do this. Besides, even if I want to do something, will anyone dare to stop me? Now that the entire palace is under my control, what do I have to be afraid of?" This time, Jiang Yucheng didn't push her hand away, and only glanced at the palace maid beside her. "Chan Yi, you can leave first," Shang Guanwan said. "Yes." That palace maid lowered her head and left respectfully. Jiang Yucheng held Shang Guanwan's wrist. "Let's talk inside." Sun Qi guard outside. Sun Qi hurriedly bowed. "Yes." Jiang Yucheng brought Shang Guanwan into the room and carefully checked all the doors and windows. Shang Guanwan found it very funny and nonchalantly said, "Yucheng, you're too cautious. Are you suspecting that my Huayang Palace isn't safe enough?" After confirming that there were no abnormalities around, Jiang Yucheng turned around, sat down on the chair, and patiently said, "It's always right to be more careful. I'm doing all this for you." When Shang Guanwan heard this, her expression indeed became much better as she intimately leaned over. However, Jiang Yucheng didn't have such thoughts. "I went to see His Majesty today. His Majesty still doesn't seem to show any signs of waking up. None of the methods he used seemed to work." At the mention of this, Shang Guanwan lost interest. She sat down beside him and snorted. Who asked you to be so ruthless back then? Now all we can do is wait. After all, there were only a few trustworthy celestial physicians. Jiang Yuqing's eyes flashed with coldness. Back then, he had asked Shang Guanwan to handle this matter. She had not done a good job, but now she was pushing all the blame onto him. But there was no point in arguing with her now. Besides, they had more important things to discuss. Let's not talk about this anymore. Are you looking for me so late at night? Because of the Wanzhong competition? Jiang Yuqing went straight to the point. Shang Guanwan's eyes lit up instantly. Her face was full of excitement and joy. That's right. Sun Qi should have already told you about the news from the Wanzhong competition, right? That Chu something who won first place. Chu Luyue, Jiang Yuqing continued. Yes, that's the name. I heard that it's a girl in her teens. I think it was Mu Qinghe who brought her back, right? Jiang Yuqing glanced at her and felt unhappy for some reason. However, he didn't show it on his face. He nodded and said, she's only a stage 3 warrior now. It's indeed quite surprising that she could win first place. However, what? Yuqing, don't you know that she has already broken through to become a stage 4 warrior? Shang Guanwan interrupted him. Jiang Yuqing was stunned. The smile on Shang Guanwan's face became more secretive and excited. And she broke through in the Tianling God realm. What do you think this means? It means that she's very compatible with the Tianling God realm. Jiang Yuqing frowned. But her Yuan meridian is only at the intermediate level. It can't be compared to those higher level ones. How can it not be compared? Shang Guanwan stood up, and her face was filled with unconcealable excitement and ecstasy. She's at the intermediate level of the Daijing Yuan meridian, but she performed better than the higher level ones. This shows that her Yuan meridian. It's still too early to say this. We have to take it step by step. Only then can we be safe, right? Jiang Yuqing didn't want to hear what she was going to say next, so he suddenly said, before His Majesty wakes up, we can't act rashly. Shang Guanwan was stunned. She sized him up a few times, and her eyes were filled with suspicion. Yuqing, what's wrong with you today? I just feel that everything is progressing too smoothly, so I'm very happy. Aren't you happy for me? Jiang Yuqing gently said. Why would I be? Haven't I waited with you for so long? This matter concerns your future, so of course, I care about it the most. Shang Guanwan knitted her brows slightly. But you look as if. My heart aches when I think of how much you'll have to suffer in the future. Jiang Yuqing stood up, held her hand and hugged her. Shang Guanwan grumbled. But I can't wait anymore. For the past year, I've been living in fear every day, afraid that someone will discover that my Yuan meridian is damaged. I've become a cripple. If I don't recover before the imperial court, everything will be over. Compared to losing everything, what's this bit of suffering? Jiang Yuqing gently patted her back. Don't worry. It'll definitely be fine. Let's take it step by step. I guarantee that there won't be any problems, okay? If we alert the enemy now, all our efforts will go to waste, right? Shang Guanwan gradually calmed down and looked up at him. Then, what do you think we should do? Jiang Yuqing smiled. Naturally, we'll follow the previous plan. Tomorrow, at Exilely Garden, all the major sects will send people, and the contestants will also be there. After you go, you just need to sit there quietly and do what you should do as the third princess. After all, as long as we keep them in Weiling, we won't have to worry about them suddenly disappearing. Shang Guanwan was quickly convinced by Jiang Yuqing. All right then. I also want to see what those people are like, especially that. Chu Luyue? Jiang Yuqing nodded in agreement, but a trace of darkness flashed past his eyes. Mu Manor. Chu Luyue and Chang Wanzhou followed Duan Ziyu to the front hall. Mu Qinghe was sitting there with his eyes closed. It was rare for him to be free. When he heard movement, he opened his eyes. Chu Luyue and Chang Wanzhou bowed. Mu Qinghe's gaze moved between her and Chang Wanzhou. After a while he spoke. I haven't congratulated the two of you for getting the best results in the Wanzhong competition. Chu Luyue was naturally humble again. Then she mentioned that she wanted to move out. Mu Qinghe looked at her. Why? Did the people from Mu Manor not serve you well? Duan Ziyu immediately broke out in cold sweat. Chu Liyue shook her head and explained. The people from Mu Manor treat me and little Zhou very well. I'm also very grateful that Vice Admiral Mu has been helping me so much. But since I'm already in Weiling, I can't stay in Mu Manor forever. I'm already very sorry for disturbing you during this period of time. So, I think it's better to move out and find another place to live. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 537. Chu Liyue's tone was sincere. Her expression was serious, and her eyes were filled with determination. Mu Qinghe glanced at her and knew that she was serious. He tapped the table with his finger. You don't have any relatives or friends in West Hill, and you don't even know many people. Isn't it convenient to live in the Mu residence? Moreover, with the Mu residence's support, you can save a lot of trouble. Chu Liyue quickly said. Vice Admiral Mu, I just feel that as an outsider living here with a small boat, I'm causing trouble for you. Although the Mu residence is not an aristocratic family, it's more than enough to support the two of you. At this point, Mu Qinghe looked at Chu Liyue meaningfully. Chu Liyue coughed awkwardly. He was still brooding over the 90,000 white crystal coins that she had spent. Liyue appreciates Vice Admiral Mu's kindness. But I owe Vice Admiral Mu enough, and I really don't want to continue disturbing you. Although Chu Liyue's words were tactful, everyone present could tell that she would not change her mind. Mu Qinghe lowered his eyes and fell into deep thought. Chu Liyue also quieted down and waited for his reply. The entire hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. After a while, Mu Qinghe stood up. Since you've already thought it through, I won't stop you. But the moment you leave the Mu residence, all the benefits will be taken back. He took 2 steps and paused. I'll leave you 10,000 white crystal coins for you to use during this period of time. Chu Liyue was very surprised. She didn't expect that Mu Qinghe would be willing to help her even when she was about to leave. She quickly said, Thank you for your kindness, Vice Admiral Mu. But I can't accept this money. Mu Qinghe looked at her suspiciously. With her previous spending speed, 10,000 white crystal coins wouldn't even be enough to support her for a few days. She actually didn't want it? Were they planning to fight the northwest wind? Chu Liyue understood what he meant, and her eyes curved. Don't worry, young Master Jian bet on me winning first place, and won quite a bit of money. He has already agreed to share a portion of it with me. Therefore, I can still hold on for a long time. Mu Qinghe's face turned cold for a moment, but it quickly disappeared. He didn't say anything and left. Chu Liyue looked at his back and frowned slightly. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that Mu Qinghe seemed a little unhappy. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. Mu Qinghe was too busy with his own affairs. How could he care about such a small matter as where she lived? She looked at Duan Ziyu. It's getting late today. Xiao Zhou and I will stay here for the last night. I'll leave tomorrow. What else could Duan Ziyu say? The deputy general made it clear that he didn't want her to find another place to live. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said those words. However, Chu Liyue refused so straightforwardly. She didn't know if she really didn't understand, or if she pretended not to understand. Please go ahead. After Duan Ziyu finished speaking, he also left. Chu Liyue returned to the small courtyard with Chang Wanzhou. You've been working hard for the past few days. Have a good rest today. You still have to go to Xianli Garden tomorrow. Chu Liyue said, and walked towards her room. When she was about to enter the door, Chang Wanzhou, who was standing behind her, suddenly said, He must have offended you. Chu Liyue looked back at him in surprise. Xiaozhou, what did you say? Chang Wanzhou stared at her. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so guilty towards you. The expression on Chu Liyue's face froze for a moment. After a moment, the corners of her lips curled up slightly, as if she was smiling. However, her eyes were cold and bitter, and it disappeared in an instant. You're wrong. That's not towards me. Besides, it's not guilt. With that, she turned around and entered the room. Chang Wanzhou stood there for a long time. He had always been very sensitive to people's emotions. But why did she say that? Or, am I really wrong? After pondering for a long time, Chang Wanzhou couldn't come to a conclusion. He simply put it aside and returned to his room. The night passed without a word. The next morning, After Chu Luiyue woke up and packed up, she wanted to say goodbye to Mu Qinghe. However, Duan Ziyu said that he had already left the residence, so she left with Chang Wanzhou. Although the Wanzhong competition had ended, Xiling City was still very lively. The two of them were recognized by many people as they walked on the streets. It couldn't be helped. The two of them were too special in terms of appearance and temperament. They could be recognized at a glance in the crowd. However, these people only looked at them, but no one dared to take the initiative to approach them. Wherever the two of them passed, the crowd sensibly made way. As they got closer and closer to Exinli Garden, the number of people around them decreased. When they reached the end of the street, Chu Luiyue immediately saw that there were already black cavalry on guard. The lineup this time was clearly much more powerful than before. It was obvious that the people who were coming today were of high status. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment, and walked forward with Chang Wanzhou. The people guarding the entrance of Exinli Garden were replaced by two royal elders. Chu Luiyue was more certain of her prediction. She walked forward without batting an eyelid. The two elders recognized Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou, but they still checked them carefully before letting them in. A person who looked like a page boy walked forward. "The two of you, please follow me." Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou nodded and followed. Chu Luiyue asked, "May I know where we're going?" The page boy said, "Thousand View Garden." Chu Luiyue was stunned and her footsteps slowed. Chang Wanzhou glanced at her. However, Chu Luiyue quickly recovered. It was actually Thousand View Garden. The purple gold Bodhi leaf is in that direction. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice suddenly sounded. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 538. In Thousand View Garden? Are you sure? Chu Luiyue asked in her heart. I'm sure. The legendary three-eyed eagle sounded very certain. If we get closer, I'll be able to accurately guess its location. Chu Luiyue continued walking forward calmly with a slight frown. She had been very concerned about Thousand View Garden in the past, but she had never noticed anything strange after so many years. When did the purplish gold Buddha leaf appear there? Under the lead of the page boy, they walked through a winding corridor and passed by a rippling lake before finally arriving at Thousand View Garden. Through the simple and elegant moon-shaped gate, Chu Luiyue could see that there were already many people in the courtyard. Please, the page boy stopped outside the gate. There was a strict hierarchy inside, and the security was tight. He was only responsible for leading them here, but he wasn't qualified to enter. Thank you. Chu Luiyue looked at the familiar scene before her, and her heart stirred. She couldn't be more familiar with every brick, stone, grass, and tree here. She exhaled softly, straightened her back, and walked in with a smile. The moment she walked in, the originally noisy courtyard quietened down instantly. Everyone looked over with different expressions on their faces. Chu Luiyue quickly scanned the surroundings, and immediately recognized many familiar faces. Even Yang Qin and the rest, who were severely injured previously, were here today. After all, it involved which sect they could enter in the future. So naturally, no one dared to slack off. She didn't see any people from the various sects, so she guessed that they should be in the hall inside. And this place was obviously left for the young participants who participated in the Wanzhong competition. The atmosphere in the courtyard became a little strange. The participant with the lowest cultivation level had become the champion, which made the others somewhat unconvinced. However, they had all been to the Tianling God realm, and had seen the situation inside. They were very clear that Chu Luiyue definitely didn't win by luck. This made them even more upset. She was only 14 years old. Those who could participate in the Wanzhong competition were all geniuses with the Daijing Yuan Meridian. They were definitely the cream of the crop no matter where they were. This match had undoubtedly dealt a heavy blow to their confidence. Then, he looked at Chu Luiyue with mixed feelings. Chu Luiyue completely ignored all of this, and did not take it to heart at all. She casually found a spot, and casually looked at the surrounding scenery. There was just the right amount of novelty in her eyes, but she was also very restrained and polite. No one could find any fault with her. So, you really don't want to get up? Suddenly, a sharp female voice came from not far away. The entire courtyard fell silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue followed everyone's gaze and saw two women arguing. The one who spoke was a woman in a purple dress. She looked to be in her early 20s and had an arrogant look on her face. Standing in front of her was a young girl who still had some baby fat on her face. She looked to be only 15 or 16 years old. She wore a green dress with a silver cauldron tattooed on her left chest. This was a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion. Her round face was flushed red, and her fists were clenched tightly. She looked like she was trying her best to endure it. "Miss, this was originally my position," the purple-clothed woman mocked. "Your spot? Is your name written on this spot?" The round-faced woman said word by word. "This is indeed a spot prepared for a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion. If you don't believe me, we can ask someone to see if that's the case." The purple-clothed woman raised her hand and put it to her ear. "What? Who did you say it was prepared for? The Chongshu Pavilion? That sect still exists? I thought it was disbanded a long time ago." The round-faced woman immediately widened her eyes and said angrily, "Miss, please be careful with your words." The purple-clothed woman glanced at her. "Who do you think you are? How dare you order me around?" The round-faced woman was clearly not good with words. She trembled in anger at the woman's arrogance, but she could not think of any rebuttal. "Don't you dare insult my sect. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." The purple-clothed woman covered her chest and mocked. I'm so scared. The remnants of the Chongshu Pavilion are threatening me." A burst of laughter came from the crowd. A young man standing beside the purple-clothed woman took a step forward and said to the round-faced woman, "Miss, I'm sorry. My junior sister has always been willful. If her words offend you, please don't take it to heart. This is her first time in Thousand View Garden, so it's inevitable that she's curious. Why don't you give this spot to her?" Chu Luiyue noticed that there were 9 stars tattooed on the left side of his chest, forming a line. He was clearly a disciple of the 9-Star Alliance. The round-faced woman took a deep breath and said word by word, "The seats here are specially arranged for the disciples of the 4 major sections. They don't belong to you. Moreover, there are so many people sitting here. Why did you choose me?" None of the people from the other 3 major sects dared to provoke them from the beginning to the end. They were here for her on purpose. The young man sneered with a hint of contempt. "Why is that? I believe everyone is very clear about it, right? I spoke politely to you just now because I wanted to leave some face for both of us. But since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for speaking rudely." The man pointed to the seat behind the round-faced woman and said, "Based on the current strength of the Chongshu Pavilion, do you have the right to sit here?" Everyone didn't say it on the surface, but in reality, everyone knew that the current Chongsu cabinet was just an empty shell. This is Xiling, where strength is respected. Since you don't have the strength, you deserve to be squeezed down by others. The purple-clothed woman beside him also had a smug expression. "Senior brother, there's no need to talk so much nonsense when dealing with people who don't have the strength, but still have the cheek to occupy a seat. Just let them know how powerful we are." The 9-Star Alliance had long surpassed the Chongshu Pavilion. Naturally, this seat should be theirs. The round-faced woman felt as if her chest was blocked by something. She felt so uncomfortable that all the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. She was clamoring for a fight. However, her last shred of rationality still firmly nailed her to the ground. Before they came, the second elder had said that this Wanzheng competition was of great importance, and that they must not cause trouble. Moreover, their Chongshu Pavilion was at the center of the storm and could easily be targeted. If they made a mistake, it would very likely lead to great trouble. That was why she had been restraining herself. But these people actually humiliated her sect. That purple-clothed woman wasn't even an official disciple of the 9-Star Alliance. How dare they be so arrogant? They were bullying their Chongshu Pavilion. The man raised 3 fingers. "I'll count to 3. Immediately give this seat to my junior sister. Otherwise what?" A clear and bright female voice suddenly sounded. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 539. The few of them turned around and saw that it was a beautiful woman dressed in red. It was Chu Luiyue. She had a smile on her face as if she was just asking casually. However, everyone could see that this dispute was just disciples fighting for a seat on the surface. In fact, it was the Nine-Star Alliance challenging the position of the four major sects in the Chongshu Pavilion. Whoever interfered at this time would be involved in this dispute. Why did Chu Luiyue suddenly care about this all of a sudden? When the young man saw that it was Chu Luiyue, he restrained his arrogance. It was rumored that she had an extraordinary relationship with Jian Fengqi and Mu Qinghe. No matter which one of them it was, they were not people he could provoke. The ferocious expression on his face stiffened into a smile. "Miss Chu, what do you mean?" Chu Luiyue asked with a smile. Don't misunderstand. I'm just a little curious. Since this seat belongs to someone else, why are you fighting for it?" Chu Luiyue's words were too straightforward, causing the man to choke. "If I didn't remember wrongly, this lady seems to be someone your Jiuxing Alliance brought over from outside Heaven's canopy. She shouldn't have entered your sect yet. Why are you calling each other senior brother and junior sister?" This time, the purple-clothed woman's expression turned ugly. Wasn't he scolding her in public? Chu Luiyue looked at the round-faced woman and asked with a smile. "I just heard that only the official disciples of the four major sects can sit in this seat, right?" The round-faced woman didn't expect Chu Luiyue to suddenly help and nodded in a daze. "That's right. These four major sects are the top existences in West Hill. They are Dragon Teeth Mountain, Soaring Cloud Sect, Purple Shaosword Sect, and our Chongshu Pavilion. When we came in just now, the servant had already said that this seat was reserved for us. Although it was called a seat, it was actually a status." Chu Luiyue nodded and looked at the two people from the Nine-Star Alliance. "Since this seat is reserved for the four major sects, may I ask, the Nine-Star Alliance?" The two immediately became embarrassed. Wasn't Chu Luiyue asking the obvious? It's precisely because they're not now, and want to replace Chongsu Cabinet, that they're doing this on purpose. What were they supposed to say when she asked that? The purple-clothed woman was unconvinced. Chongshu Pavilion is no longer the Chongshu Pavilion of the past. Let's talk about her. His ranking in the Wanzheng competition was below mine. Just based on this point alone, she has no right to sit here. Chu Luiyue asked. "What's your rank?" The woman in purple raised her chin. 35. Chu Luiyue looked at the round-faced woman. "What about you?" The round-faced woman lowered her head in embarrassment. 41. Actually, the difference between the two of them wasn't that big. Furthermore, this round-faced woman was considered young among these people. It was already considered good that she could obtain this rank. The purple-clothed woman sneered. "Although I've only been to West Hill for a short while, I know that there's a rule in West Hill. Strength is respected. Now that my ranking is higher than hers, and I'm stronger than her, why can't I sit here?" The round-faced woman's face flushed red. Her lips trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes. It was all because she was useless. If she had performed better in the Wanzheng competition, she wouldn't have been humiliated like this, and implicated the reputation of her entire sect. "What about me?" Chu Luiyue said. The purple-clothed woman was suddenly stunned. "What?" Chu Luiyue smiled. "I'm first. Am I more qualified to sit here than you?" The purple-clothed woman seemed to be choked by something and stuttered. But you're not interested in this seat at all. Why are you deliberately making things difficult for us? Whether I'm interested or not is my business. You just have to answer my question." Chu Luiyue looked at her indifferently. "You?" The purple-clothed woman was enraged, and her voice became sharp and piercing. "Chu Luiyue, are you determined to stand up for Chongshu Pavilion today? You have to think carefully. You're going against the entire Nine-Star Alliance." Chu Luiyue smiled. "Isn't it just a seat? Do you have to make it sound so serious? But if you really want to put it that way, then you can say it's true." His nonchalant attitude made the woman even angrier. On impulse, she took a step forward, and was immediately stopped by the man beside her. "Junior sister." Chu Luiyue alone wasn't scary, but she had Jian Fengqi and Mu Qinghe behind her. Now the entire West Hill was rumored to be very fond of Chu Luiyue. No matter which one Chu Luiyue chose, her status and power in the future couldn't be underestimated. If they went against her, wouldn't they be looking for trouble for themselves? "Senior brother." The woman was angry, But when she met the man's warning gaze, she finally swallowed the rest of her words and turned her head away unwillingly. The man said, "Since Miss Chu wants this seat, then we won't fight with you. Miss Chu, please." With that, he pulled the purple-clothed woman to the other side. The round-faced woman looked at Chu Luiyue gratefully and hesitantly. Chu Luiyue looked at the round-faced woman, and the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. "You can continue to sit in this seat. But this is I'm not interested in this. I just don't like them. Don't take it to heart." Chu Luiyue patted her shoulder lightly. The round-faced woman looked at her in a daze. So from the beginning to the end, Chu Luiyue really did it to help her? Ever since the incident at the Chongshu Pavilion, the people in the pavilion had been looked down on and ridiculed, and there were countless people who hit them when they were down. This was the first time that someone stood on their side in public and spoke up for them. And this person was Chu Luiyue, who they didn't know. Thank you. The round-faced woman was a little helpless. I don't know how to thank you," Chu Luiyue asked. "What's your name? How old are you?" The round-faced woman answered honestly. "My name is Yi Ranran. I'll be 14 in a month." Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. This woman looked to be 15 or 16 years old, but she was a few months younger than her. As if she could see Chu Luiyue's meaning, the round-faced woman's cheeks turned slightly red. "I eat a lot, so I look stronger than ordinary women." Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's clearly still a half-grown child. How badly does Chongsu Cabinet need people to send her out? It's okay. You're very talented. As long as you cultivate well, you'll be very powerful in the future, Chu Luiyue said seriously. Yi Ranran's eyes lit up. Pavilion Master said so too. But I always thought he was coaxing me, she said a little embarrassedly. Chu Luiyue sighed softly in her heart. It's true. Also, remember to return the favor if you're bullied in the future. Yi Ranran nodded vigorously. Just as he was about to ask more questions, he heard a voice. The sect master of the Purple Shao Sword sect has arrived. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 540. Everyone was shocked. The Purple Shao Sword sect had a high status, and they thought it would be an elder. Why was it the sect master? Amidst the commotion, a burly middle-aged man walked over. It was the Purple Shao Sword sect's sect master Song Wan. Immediately after, the leaders of the other major sects also appeared in front of everyone. Dragon Teeth Mountain's master Jian Shai, Sky Soaring Clan's sect master Chung Lifeng, Chongshu Pavilion's pavilion master Yu Qi Song. The top figures of the four major sects were all gathered here. After that, the leaders of the other sects that were ranked below the four major sects also appeared. The courtyard had already quietened down. Everyone secretly looked at each other. Clearly, they didn't expect that there would be such a big lineup today. Instantly, many people became nervous. These were all rumored top-notch experts. Regardless of status or personal strength, there was no doubt that they were the most powerful existences in Xiling, and even the entire Tianling dynasty. Usually it was very rare to see even one of them, but they actually appeared together this time. Chairs were already prepared in the courtyard. There were 4 on both sides and 2 at the front. The 8 of them sat down one after another, and there was a distance between them and Chu Luiyue's group. Chu Luiyue's gaze landed on the 2 empty chairs. To be able to sit in those seats. The third princess has arrived. The prince consort has arrived. A sharp voice rang out. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately looked up. He saw a young lady in an exquisite and gorgeous palace dress walking over. She had a fluttering hairstyle, and a phoenix gold buyao in her hair. When she walked over leisurely, the buyao swayed gently. There was a faint and graceful smile on her face, and the makeup on her body made her look even more noble. Chu Luiyue looked at the extremely familiar face, and his fingers trembled slightly. Shengguan Wan. More than a year had passed, but she didn't seem to have changed much. It was as if everything that happened in the past didn't leave any traces. No, she still changed. Chu Luiyue's gaze swept over Shengguan Wan's body inch by inch. In the past, Shengguan Wan, because of the lowly status of her birth mother, did not have a good life in the palace. Therefore, she always had an eager and flattering smile on her face. She was as weak as a dodder flower, swaying in the wind without anyone to rely on. Anyone who saw her watery and deceptive eyes would feel pity for her. Even if he did something wrong, it was always hard to be mercilessly punished. Chu Liyue sneered inwardly. Among them, this included her former self. At that time, she was born with the Tianjing Yuan meridian. Since she was young, she had everything that others desired. At first, she didn't feel it. Later, Shang Guanwan always showed envy in front of her, intentionally or unintentionally. She gradually thought that Shang Guanwan was very pitiful. Not to mention that she often helped her. Many times she was particularly soft-hearted. It was this unnecessary and useless sympathy that caused her to lose her life. Looking at the current Shang Guanwan, she was arrogant and in high spirits. Her eyes were filled with the arrogance and murderous fierceness of a person in a superior position. She didn't look like the past at all. She must have lived a very comfortable life in power for more than a year. That was why she became like this, right? Half a step behind her, there was a young man, Jiang Yucheng. He was wearing a blue brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist, outlining his tall figure. He didn't have any extra accessories on his body, but at a glance he had a noble aura. Anyone who saw him would guess that this person's identity was extraordinary. Today, he didn't wear a mask, revealing his original appearance. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and he was handsome. To be called the most handsome man in West Hill, he did have some capital. Different from Jian Fengqi, that kind of romantic person, Jiang Yuqing had a pair of affectionate eyes. When he stared at a person, it was easy to have an affectionate expression. This made people misunderstand that he had a rare gentleness. It was this pair of eyes that deceived her and pushed her to death. Looking at it now, under that thin layer of floating light, how cold and vicious was it? At that time, she was really bewitched. That was why she was bullied to that extent by these two people. Chu Liyue clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. A handsome and enchanting face suddenly appeared in her mind. Chu Liyue's heart stirred. It was Rong Xiao. Somehow, the anger and resentment in Chu Liyue's heart gradually calmed down. It was as if there was an invisible hand gently comforting her. Chu Liyue opened her eyes, and a trace of nostalgia flashed across her heart. Only then did she realize that she missed Rong Xiao so much. If only he was here now. Chu Liyue thought silently, and looked up at Jiang Yuqing. Looking at his face now, it was much more ordinary. His nose was not high enough, his eyes were not deep enough, and the shape of his lips was not good enough. The aura he exuded was worlds apart from that of his. When Chu Liyue first saw Rong Xiao, she knew that he was a rare immortal-like figure in this world. But now that there was a comparison, this feeling became even stronger. She really understood what it meant by the difference between clouds and mud. Thinking of this, Chu Liyue's mood suddenly became much better. Not to mention other things, at least she beat Shang Guanwan in one thing. She had Rong Xiao. Somewhere thousands of miles away, the sky was blue, and the water was rippling. A huge island was suspended in midair. The rich force condensed into a white mist and drifted in all directions. A tall and straight white figure was walking on the waves. Suddenly, he stopped and gently placed his hand on his heart. "Your Highness, what's wrong?" Yan Qing asked behind him. Rong Xiao lowered his eyes, his eyelashes trembling slightly, and then his thin lips curled up. "Little heartless girl, you finally remembered me." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 541. Chu Liyue naturally didn't know what her man was thinking at this moment. In her countless fantasies, she had always thought that when she saw these two people again, she would definitely want to cut them into pieces to dispel the hatred in her heart. However, at this moment, when all of this really happened, she realized that something seemed to be different. The hatred and anger were still the same as before. The pain of being betrayed was etched in her heart, and she would never forget it. However, her heart seemed to be covered by a layer of armor, carefully protecting her. It was the armor that Rong Xiao gave her. The hostility hidden in the deepest part of her heart seemed to have gradually faded. Because she knew that no matter what, there would always be someone in this world who would trust and love her gently and generously. She exhaled softly. She actually felt that she had never been so relaxed since her rebirth. At this moment, an idea suddenly appeared in her mind. After she settled these grudges, she must personally tell Rong Xiu that she missed him and loved him. Chang Wanzhou stood beside Chu Luyue. He keenly sensed that Chu Luyue's emotions seemed to be changing back and forth, before finally returning to calmness. Moreover, the feeling she gave off seemed to be different. He couldn't tell what was different, but he was sure that there was. Moreover, it was a good change. Previously, he had always felt that Chu Luyue seemed to be suppressing something in her heart. Even when she was smiling, there was always a trace of haze. But now it was different. Shang Guanwan and Jiang Yuqing sat down on the last two chairs. Although they hadn't officially married yet, the two of them were engaged. Moreover, they were recently discussing the wedding date, and the process had already begun. Therefore, in the eyes of everyone, there was no difference at all. After all, Jiang Yuqing was still helping to manage the court. The two of them were so close that they had already held a wedding ceremony. The 8 people sitting were about to bow when they were stopped by Shang Guanwan. These 8 people were of noble status. Although she now held great power, she was still very polite and cautious when facing these people. The sect master of the Purple Xiao Sword sect, Song Wan, smiled. "Old Song, I didn't expect your disciples to be so unyielding. Looks like you're still the same as before. You're good at teaching." As soon as he said this, everyone became even quieter and looked at each other in dismay. It seemed that everything that had happened here had been seen by these big shots. The round-faced woman immediately became nervous. If it was because of her that the pavilion master was bullied by others here. Yuqi Song's face seemed to be more haggard than the last time they met, but his gaze didn't change after hearing Song Wan's words. The disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion are naturally good. The leader of the 9-Star Alliance, Zhang Hua, sneered. "Old Song, is there no one else in the Chongshu Pavilion? How could they send such a little girl here? She can't even support her own pavilion, and needs others to help her. Don't you think it's a little inappropriate for her to forcibly occupy a seat like this?" Yuqi Song glanced at him indifferently. It's still better than some people who don't know their place and offend their superiors. Zhang Hua choked. Their 9-Star Alliance's status was indeed inferior to the Chongshu Pavilion. Even though the Chongshu Pavilion was about to collapse, they still had some confidence, since they hadn't taken down the title of one of the 4 major sections. He was so angry that he laughed and turned the ring in his hand. "Old Song's words aren't without reason. It's my 9-Star Alliance's disciple who offended you. But I wonder if Old Song has heard of this saying? If one's virtue doesn't match his position, there will be disaster." The air at the scene seemed to have frozen. Wasn't saying this in front of Yuqi Song's face equivalent to scolding him? This was no longer a test, but a naked provocation. To need the help of a little girl who's inexperienced. Has the Chongshu Pavilion fallen to this extent? Zhang Hua said with a sneer. Chu Luyue raised his brows slightly. In the past, Zhang Hua could be said to be extremely fawning over Yuqi Song, and was extremely attentive. Once, in order to ask for a pill, he personally went to the Chongshu Pavilion. However, because Yuqi Song was still recuperating in seclusion, he didn't get anyone to inform him, and waited outside for half a month. In the end, it was only when Yuqi Song went out and saw Zhang Hua that he knew that he was there. Because of this, from then on, Yuqi Song had always treated Zhang Hua very well, and almost treated him as his own junior. The 9-Star Alliance and the Chongshu Pavilion were also very friendly and close. I didn't expect Chongsu Cabinet to suffer such a huge blow. The first one who couldn't take it was Jiuxing Alliance. Yuqi Song remained motionless in all directions. A just cause enjoys abundant support, while an unjust cause finds little support. What does it have to do with me if no one is willing to help the 9-Star Alliance? Although things were different now, as long as he was the pavilion master of the Chongshu Pavilion, he would never let anyone bully his disciple. "You." Zhang Hua was furious. Yuqi Song had already looked at Chu Luyue. The distance between them was a little far, and Chu Luyue was standing at the back of the crowd. so it was not easy to find him. However, Yu Qisong still saw her at a glance. Wei Qisong was slightly taken aback at first glance. This woman's face seems familiar. Where have I seen her before? Chu Luiyue met Yu Qisong's gaze and nodded slightly. A thought flashed through Yu Qisong's mind. That's right. I've seen this woman once at 100 Herbs Building. At that time, most of his attention was on the seal, so he didn't pay much attention to his surroundings. However, because that woman was generous and rich, he paid more attention to her. He didn't expect that when they met again today, she would take the initiative to help. Now that the Chongshu Pavilion's position was in danger, the people in Xiling City were avoiding them. No one was willing to have anything to do with them. This Chu Luiyue, she should know about this. However, she was still willing to step in. It was indeed puzzling. Shang Guanwan and Jiang Yuqing were not with these people previously, so they did not see the conflict between the two sides. However, before they came, their subordinates had already reported the situation to them. Therefore, Shang Guanwan looked calm, but her heart was filled with curiosity. As she searched the crowd, she smiled faintly and said, "Seniors, thank you for coming here today. I'm really flattered that you've taken the time to come here today. I'm really flattered. Your time and energy are very precious, so I won't waste any more time. Why don't we begin?" These words could be considered as giving them a way out, and they all nodded in agreement. Shang Guanwan nodded at Chan Yi, who was standing beside her. Chan Yi took a few steps forward. Her shoulders were straight, and her hands were crossed on her abdomen. Although she was wearing the clothes of a palace maid, she looked very dignified. Everyone looked at her aura and quietened down. She looked around and raised her voice. "The top 10 of the Wanzheng competition, please come forward." More and more people walked out from the crowd and stood in the middle, lining up in order. Shang Guanwan sat up straight. Who is Chu Luiyue who got first place? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 542. It's here, Chu Luiyue muttered in her heart. After her rebirth, this scene had played out countless times in her dreams. Every time she thought about it, she vaguely felt that the flames in the Imperial Ancestral Hall that day still burned fiercely in her heart, wanting to completely burn her to ashes. The bright morning sun shone down gently, and a gentle breeze blew. The air was still filled with the familiar fragrance of herbs. Everything was as clear as yesterday. Now, she was Shang Guanyu, and also Chu Luiyue. She had returned after so many hardships. She wondered how these old friends would react when they met again. Everything around her seemed to become blurry at this moment. Only the two people in front of her became incomparably clear. It even made her eyes hurt a little. Chu Luiyue took a step forward. Chu Luiyue from country Yaochen greets the third princess. Shang Guanwan looked over curiously. The woman stood in the middle. She was dressed in red, and her figure was slender and exquisite. Her black hair cascaded down like a waterfall. She lowered her head slightly, so one couldn't see her full face. However, one could already tell that she was a rare beauty. "Raise your head," Shang Guanwan said. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered slightly, and she slowly raised her head. The young girl had an oval face. Her fair and clear skin seemed to glow under the sunlight. Her black eyebrows were like falling crow feathers. Her nose bridge was delicate, and her cherry lips were slightly curved. Especially her pair of black jade-like eyes. They were bright, and seemed to contain the stars in the sky. She was peerlessly beautiful, and had a heavenly fragrance. That was what she was talking about. Shang Guanwan was stunned. The Tianling dynasty had never lacked beauties. Moreover, Shang Guanwan's appearance was also very outstanding. However, after this woman appeared, everything around her seemed to be overshadowed. She naturally attracted everyone's attention. Shang Guanwan felt a little uncomfortable. But what made her feel even more uncomfortable was that this face, for some reason, looked a little familiar. Jiang Yuqing was sitting next to Shang Guanwan. He could clearly see Chu Luiyue's face. Although he had seen it before, the impact seemed to be greater now that he was facing it head-on at such a close distance. The fingers in his sleeves moved slightly, but he didn't say anything. "I heard that you're only 14 years old this year?" His talent and strength were truly outstanding. Shang Guanwan suppressed the waves in her heart and said with a smile. Although it was a compliment, his tone still sounded high and mighty, as if he was commenting on something condescendingly. Chu Liyue didn't think much of it and smiled. Thank you for your praise, third princess. When she smiled, her eyebrows and eyes curved like the melting ice in early spring. She was sweet and lively, and there was a hint of nobility in her eyes. Even though the person sitting in front of him was the current ruler of the Tianling dynasty, he was still able to deal with him with ease and composure. Shang Guanwan's heart skipped a beat. He almost stood up from his chair. Those eyes and brows. This smile. It was clearly Jiang Yuqing suddenly coughed. Shang Guanwan immediately came to her senses, but her eyes were still fixed on Chu Liyue. For a moment, she almost wanted to rush over and tear that face apart to see if there was another face hidden underneath. The few big shots around them all noticed that something was wrong with Shang Guanwan and looked over. Shang Guanwan immediately adjusted her expression, relaxed her body, and leaned back in her chair. But only she knew that her hands and her sleeves were clenched tightly, and her nails were deeply embedded in her palms. Since you defeated the others, it proves that you have the strength. In the Tianling dynasty, strength has always been respected. You are worthy of this praise. Shang Guanwan barely moved the corners of her mouth. And, when I saw you, I felt as if I had seen you somewhere before. Your appearance is somewhat similar to an old friend. These words explained her loss of composure just now. At that moment, she almost thought that Shang Guanyu had turned into a malicious spirit and came to seek revenge on her. Yu Qisong and the others were stunned for a moment, and they couldn't help but look at Chu Liyue again. After a moment, a few people's expressions changed slightly. At first, they didn't feel it, but after Shang Guanwan said that, they could all see it. Chu Liyue's eyebrows and expression were somewhat similar to the princess in the past. It was fine when she didn't move or smile, but when she smiled, Chu Liyue's smile deepened. Similar? Of course. Shang Guanyu's soul was in this body. She had deliberately tested it just now, and it almost scared Shang Guanyu out of her wits. She clearly saw that Shang Guanyu's entire face was distorted at that moment. Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian said the same thing before. Chu Liyue pretended not to notice Shang Guanyu's abnormality. She retracted the expression in her eyes and smiled faintly. When she smiled, they didn't look alike anymore. Shang Guanwan's wildly beating heart gradually calmed down. Illusion. It should be an illusion. There are many people in this world who look alike. It should be a coincidence. However, she still couldn't help but glance at Jiang Yuqing. Jiang Yuqing gave her a comforting look and used his force to transmit his voice. I've already sent someone to investigate this Chu Liyue's identity. There's no problem with her identity. Shang Guanwan then felt more at ease. Jiang Yuqing must have felt that they were similar, which was why he sent someone to investigate. She had always trusted his ability. Since he said that there was no problem, then there definitely wasn't a problem. Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. Shang Guanyu back then, with the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, she couldn't be more dead. Why would she come back? However, her back was still covered in cold sweat. When the breeze blew past, her entire body turned cold. Yes, actually, we don't look that alike. Shang Guanwan seemed to have collapsed, and she was much more tired. Chu Liyue raised his brows slightly and asked softly, "Third princess, are you all right?" "Third princess, is there something wrong?" Shang Guanyu forced a smile, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. After pausing for a moment, she said, "Actually, I won't hide it from you. You're a little similar to my elder sister, who has already passed away. When I suddenly saw you, I thought of my elder sister. I can't help but feel sad." As she spoke, Shang Guanwan's eyes were filled with tears. It seemed like she was really sad because of this. Jiang Yuqing lightly patted her shoulder. She has always doted on you the most. If she saw you so sad, she definitely wouldn't be happy. Shang Guanwan wiped away her tears. "Yuqing, thank you. I just miss my elder sister too much." She took a deep breath and seemed to be trying her best to keep all these emotions away. "I'm sorry for making a fool of myself." Everyone expressed their understanding. Could the third princess's elder sister be the rumored princess? Who else can it be other than her? Back then, She was the true supreme existence of the Tianling dynasty. Impossible. Isn't there still the current emperor above her? Can the princess surpass him? Heh, you don't know this. That person was born with the Tianjin Yuan meridian, and she was destined to be the princess. Rumors say that she has a high chance of becoming the person to inherit Taizu's legacy. Thus, even the emperor would often let the princess make decisions. It's a pity that in the end, Chu Luyue acted like she didn't hear those discussions. She smiled and said, "If the third princess's elder sister is here and knows that you miss her so much, she will definitely be very comforted. She will often accompany you and protect you." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 543. Chu Liyue's casual words successfully made Shang Guanwan's emotions, which she had just calmed down with much difficulty, flare up again. However, she couldn't flare up in front of so many people. Moreover, to those people, Chu Liyue's words weren't wrong at all. Shang Guanwan could only swallow her anger and force a smile, but her face was a little pale. Jiang Yuqing knew that if he didn't say anything, things would get out of hand, so he immediately changed the topic. "I believe everyone is clear about the purpose of inviting everyone here today. Chu Liyue, you're from outside the heavens canopy. According to the rules, you can join any sect here. Have you thought about it?" Yu Qisong and the others looked over. The people waiting on the other side were even more curious. Which sect would Chu Liyue choose? She had the best results here. No matter if it was her talent or strength, there was nothing to say. She should be able to choose any of these sects, right? Who wouldn't want such a genius? "I don't think so." She spoke up for the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion just now. Isn't that making it clear that she's going against the Nine-Star Alliance? Look at the way the Nine-Star Alliance's leader looks at Chu Liyue. He's not very nice. You don't know? Chu Liyue even offended the people from the Lingyun sect before. Elder Qiushi hates her a lot. She definitely won't go to the Lingyun sect. It seems like she even offended the people from the Purple Shao Sword sect and the Xianfeng Hall in the Tianling God realm. As they spoke, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. How did Chu Liyue offend so many people? How did she do it in just a few days? In that case, Dragon Teeth Mountain is the only one left among the four major sects. Oh right, didn't Jianfengqi like her? She should choose Dragon Teeth Mountain, right? Chu Liyue didn't care about what those people were saying at first, but soon, she felt a substantial gaze land on her. She looked up. The mountain lord of Dragon Teeth Mountain, Jian Shai, was looking at her with bright eyes. Curiosity, excitement, joy, relief, kindness. Chu Liyue's mouth twitched. Why did she feel that Jian Shai was looking at her? As if he was looking at his daughter-in-law. Did he misunderstand something? Jian Shai could be considered to be the most elegant and handsome among these big shots. Jianfengqi's face, which attracted countless admirers, came from his biological father, Jian Shai. The father and son had the same icy eyes and the same chiseled face. However, unlike the playboy Jianfengqi, Jian Shai was famous for being a romantic. Back then, he had ignored his father's objections and insisted on marrying an extremely ordinary woman. Although outsiders didn't think highly of them, their relationship as husband and wife had always been very good. They had been loving each other for decades. To this day, he hadn't even taken in a concubine. This was part of the reason why Jianfengqi could be so arrogant. In the entire Dragon Teeth Mountain, he was the only young master. How could he not pamper him? Jian Shai looked at Chu Liyue from head to toe. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. He almost slammed the table and shouted, "My son really takes after me. He has good taste. Look at this appearance, look at this temperament, look at this talent." No matter how he looked, he was satisfied. He and his wife had been deeply in love for their entire lives. Somehow, they had given birth to a playboy. Because of this, he and his wife had a headache. More than once, they felt that this son was useless. Which family's good son would sleep in Spring Breeze house every day, surrounded by a circle of women? Because of this, he had taught Jianfengqi a lot of lessons, but it was useless. Recently, there was a rumor in Shilling City that Jianfengqi had spent a lot of money on a woman. At first, He thought that Jian Fengqi was just being playful again. However, when he heard about the amount of money Jian Fengqi had bet, he suddenly felt that he was sincere. Later on, he heard that on the day of the Wanzhong competition, Jian Fengqi had specially gone to Xuanji Square to congratulate Chu Luyue in person. This was equivalent to irrefutable evidence. Therefore, he didn't come here today to choose a disciple. He came here to see what kind of woman the legendary Chu Luyue was like. Once he saw her, he was overjoyed. This Chu Luyue might have an ordinary background, but why would he care about this? Moreover, Chu Luyue's temperament was also very good. Those who didn't know her would think that she was a noble lady carefully raised by some aristocratic family in Xiling City. His son had finally chosen the right person for once. Chu Luyue was frightened by Jian Shai's exceptionally passionate gaze. If I really go to Dragon Teeth Mountain, I'll be stared at like this every day. The moment she thought of that scene, she felt uncomfortable. Therefore, Chu Luyue made a decision. I choose Chongshu Pavilion. As soon as she finished speaking, the noisy crowd immediately disappeared. The surroundings were silent as if everything had stopped. Yuchi-song widened his eyes slightly. Because things had happened too unexpectedly, he didn't even have time to be shocked. He was only filled with confusion and confusion. Just now did Chu Luyue say, choose Chongshu Pavilion? How can that be? Jian Shai was the first to object. Absolutely not. How can my daughter-in-law go to another place? Luyu, you should come to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Chu Luyue's eyes froze for a moment. Is Jian Shai openly snatching me? And why is he calling me by my name? This should be the first time we've met, right? No matter what, Jian Shai is a reputable figure in West Hill. Is this really appropriate? Yuchi-song immediately said. Jian Shai, what do you mean by this? Jian Shai cupped his fists and bowed to Yuchi-song. Elder Song, I've offended you. I don't mean to offend you. It's just that because of my son, I really think Chu Luyue is very pleasing to the eye. So, why don't you give her to Dragon Teeth Mountain? Don't worry, I definitely won't fight with you for the others. Many people secretly curled their lips. He wants to snatch the best one now. The rest are not as good as Chu Luyue. Doesn't that mean he doesn't have to snatch her anymore? Yuchi-song stroked his beard. We should let her decide for herself. As he spoke, he also looked at Chu Luyue. Luyu, I'm very happy that you want to come to Chongshu Pavilion and welcome you. However, Jian Shai wants to invite you to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Since he's spoken, I won't forcefully stop him. Think about it yourself. Which one do you want to go to? Dragon Teeth Mountain and Chongshu Pavilion had always had a good relationship. Moreover, he could tell that Jian Shai really wanted Chu Luyue to go to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spoken so directly. From his own point of view, of course, he wanted Chu Luyue to come to Chongshu Pavilion. After the previous incident, Chongshu Pavilion was now in short supply. They urgently needed to nurture a group of outstanding disciples to continue. On the other hand, Dragon Teeth Mountain's status and resources were better. For Chu Luyue, it was a better choice. Chu Luyue curtsied and said firmly, Thank you for your kindness, Mountain Master. But Luyu has made up his mind. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 544. Jian Shai still refused to give up. Luyu, you should think about it again. Chu Luyue smiled. Luyu doesn't deserve the Hill Master's kindness. Please don't make things difficult for Luyu. Jian Shai saw her serious expression and knew that it was useless to say anything else. He could only sigh. Sigh. All right. Since you insist on choosing the Chongshu Pavilion, then, as he spoke, his expression suddenly froze. He had already invited Chu Luyue to Dragon Teeth Mountain, so enthusiastically and sincerely. Anyone would know which choice was better for their future development. However, she still rejected him so straightforwardly. Could it be that there was another reason? Could it be that his son had hurt the girl's heart? Jian Shai's mind raced. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. It must be so. Chu Luyue only saw Jian Shai's expression change rapidly. Finally, he said hatefully, This brat. Let's see how I'll deal with him when we get back. Chu Luyue's eyelids twitched. Was he talking about Jian Fengqi? Jianshai seemed to have really misunderstood. However, this was obviously not a good time to explain this. Chu Liyue thought about it and decided to wait for an opportunity to explain the situation in private. Thank you for your understanding, Hill Master. After saying that, she bowed to Yuchi Song. Lu Yu greets the pavilion master. Yuchi Song looked at the woman, who bowed respectfully in front of him. His emotions were in turmoil, and for a moment, he felt as if he was choking. He didn't have much hope in coming here today. Everyone thought that the Chongshu Pavilion's luck was over. These young people came to West Hill despite the hardships to fight for a future. Anyone with a little ambition would not choose the Chongshu Pavilion. However, Chu Liyue made a choice without hesitation. Okay, get up quickly. Yuchi Song got up and walked over. He personally helped Chu Liyue up. His originally haggard appearance was now much more spirited. Don't worry, Chongshu Pavilion will treat you well in the future. Wei Chi Song enunciated each word solemnly. Chu Liyue nodded slightly. Thank you, Pavilion Master. She knew that Yuchi Song was a man of his words, and she also knew that he treated her very well. This had always been the case from the past until now. Other than Jianshai, who was full of regret, everyone else's attitude towards this matter was basically the same. First it was shock, then curiosity, and finally, some people felt sorry for him, while others mocked him. But no matter what, Chu Liyue had already made his choice, and the outcome was set. Jiang Yuqing looked at Chu Liyue with a slight frown. It turned out that Chu Liyue had already planned to speak up for the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion. However, he could not figure out why Chu Liyue would do such a thing. Next, where is Chang Wanzhou? Chang Wanzhou stood up. Many gazes landed on him, including Song Wan and the others. This golden-haired youth had an unruly aura all over his body. However, unlike the controversial Chu Liyue, he had already reached a stage 6 warrior. This was a strength that could be seen with the naked eye. Everyone might question Chu Liyue's first place, but absolutely no one would question Chang Wanzhou's second place. He was indeed the top existence among these geniuses. More importantly, he was like an unpolished jade that had not been polished. With a little guidance, he would definitely blossom with an even more brilliant and dazzling light. The major sects present were actually a little restless. They looked at Chang Wanzhou with a friendlier expression than when they looked at Chu Liyue. Jiang Yuqing asked, "You can also choose these, Chongshu Pavilion." Chang Wanzhou spoke without hesitation. Jiang Yuqing instinctively asked, "What?" Chang Wanzhou pointed at Chu Liyue. She chose Chongshu Pavilion. I'm the same as her. Chu Liyue blinked. Actually, she did not discuss this matter with Chang Wanzhou previously, because she felt that he would choose with her. As expected, this child looks very obedient most of the time. You also want to choose Chongshu Pavilion? Are you sure? The one who spoke this time was Lingyun's sect's chief, Cheng Lifeng. He originally thought highly of Chang Wanzhou, but who would have thought that this kid would choose with Chu Liyue? Chang Wanzhou frowned slightly. He had already said it very clearly. Why were these people still asking? I'm sure. As he spoke, he had already walked directly towards Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue ruffled his hair. I knew that you're very clingy. Chang Wanzhou's soft golden hair was messed up again. But this time, he was not as angry as before. Ever since Chu Liyue protected him in the Tianling God realm, and called him Little Zhou, it seemed that it was very difficult for him to be angry with her. And during this period of time, he knew that Chu Liyue was mostly just joking with him. In fact, she really treated him well. Then it was actually somewhat acceptable for her to ruffle his hair. When everyone saw how close the two of them were, how could they not guess why Chang Wanzhou chose like this? He clearly chose Chongshu Pavilion for Chu Liyue's sake. If Chu Liyue chose another sect, he would obviously choose as well. These two clearly came from different places. How did their relationship become so good in just a few days? Cheng Lifeng snorted. I originally thought that you were a good seedling, but I didn't expect that a man like you would be led by the nose by a girl. This is really, I don't want you. Such a person would probably not have any future prospects. Chu Liyue's eyes turned cold. Before she could speak, Chang Wanzhou looked at Cheng Lifeng and said coldly, I didn't choose you. It's clear that I didn't choose you. So why do you say that you don't want me? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 545. Cheng Lifeng's face immediately turned red. Unable to back down, he could only point at Cheng Wanzhou. Those people could only settle for the second best. You're so uneducated. Even so, is this how your parents taught you to talk back to your elders? However, whether it was Cheng Wanzhou looked at him coldly. I don't care much about this. From the moment he could remember, he had been alone, quietly at the side. He ate wild grass, but in reality, wild. She was not only did he have to avoid the attacks of wild the legendary three-eyed eagle, but he also had to compete with them for survival resources. Can you confirm the location now? In his mind, there was no concept of parents at all. The legendary three-eyed eagle paused for a moment and said with certainty, he was so angry that his whole body trembled. Southeast. How dare you? Looked up. Cheng Wanzhou frowned. That was her previous music room. He had only said a few words of truth. How come she didn't know that the purple gold Buddha leaf was angry and agitated? If you want a more specific location, you have to go there. Cheng Wanzhou turned around and glanced at her before swallowing the rest of his words. There should be many barriers. Chu Liyue's lips curved slightly. It won't be easy to get it. She pulled Cheng Wanzhou over her forehead, then stepped forward and said in a clear voice, if it was in the past, she would have gone if she wanted to. Little Zhou grew up in Nanjiang, moreover, and doesn't know much about many things. If he offended status, please forgive him. She probably didn't even have the right to get close to the music room. He's really barbaric. After thinking about it, she could only put this matter aside, but her expression was slightly cold. After about an hour, even if he's everyone a little unfinished making their choices, it's not his fault. After that, isn't it? Those who were ranked at the top received a universe ring containing their rewards. I don't think you'll argue with the teenager, right? Received it. The implication was that we found that there were indeed a few good treasures. If he really wanted to harp on Cheng Wanzhou's words, had indeed put in a lot of effort for this one Cheng Lifeng waved his sleeves fiercely and looked away. These things might be very precious to others, but they might not be enough for the world, especially now that she had the dragon abyss smiled faintly. Any one of the items in the sword hilt would be better than all of these. Only felt as if his internal organs were pretended to be pleasantly surprised, and it was very uncomfortable. Many envious and jealous gazes. Think that he could be arrogant and unbridled now that he had joined the Chongshu Pavilions, everyone. Chu Liyue calmly stepped back and gave Cheng Wanzhou a comforting look. However, anyway, to all of you, she had already offended the soaring cloud powerful being might have just begun. Elder Chioshi's personality, I hope that all of you can cultivate even if she knelt down and begged for mercy, sex, he might not become a true powerful being. Instead, he might become even more arrogant with him. Since that was the case, things to do. What did she have to be afraid of? At least on the surface, Garden Cheng Lifeng didn't dare to do anything. Feel free to do as you please. Yuchi-song patted Chu Liyue. She turned around and prepared to leave. Chu Liyue knew that he was supporting him. Please wait. So he smiled at him. A voice suddenly rang out. Everyone had different expressions in the direction of the voice. Chu Liyue pretended not to see anything. It was Yang Qiner. Retreated to the back with turned around and glanced at her. The people at the back continued. Do you still have some better rankings? Were basically not rejected. Quickly stepped forward. Many of them already had dealings with the pavilion before, she said with a grave expression. Third at princess, some contestants who were not so outstanding were occasionally rejected. Shang Guanwan had a deep impression of Yang Qiner. Seeing her like this, she asked, "What's the matter?" Yang Qiner paused for a moment. "This matter concerns the Tianling God realm. I wonder." Chu Liyue's eyebrows twitched. "Is she planning to do something to me? Previously, I thought that Yang Qiner would definitely not let this matter rest after suffering such a huge loss. As expected, she had been quietly waiting at the side for such a long time previously. So this was what she was waiting for. Hearing that this matter concerned the Tianling God realm, Shang Guanwan's expression immediately became serious. She pondered for a moment and said, "Come with me." However, Yang Qiner didn't get up. "There are a few people involved in this matter." "Who are they?" "Just say it," Shang Guanwan ordered. Yang Qin looked up as if she had made up her mind. "Those involved in this matter are Chou Ding Ming Jiao Jiao Cheng Wanzhou and Chu Liyue." When everyone heard this, they were all shocked. These people were all in the top 10. Seeing Yang Qiner like this, the matter should be quite serious. Could it be that something happened in the Tianling God realm at the last moment? The same guess appeared in Shang Guanwan's heart. She frowned and swept her gaze across these people. "The few of you follow me." With that, she took the lead and walked towards the small courtyard at the back. Jiang Yuqing was half a step behind her. Only then did Yang Qin get up and follow her. When she passed by Chu Liyue, she paused and said softly, "There's going to be a good show. There's going to be a good show now." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 546. Chu Luyue met her proud gaze and smiled. Yes. I hope you can enjoy it this time. Yang Qin'er's smile froze. Why is Chu Luyue still so calm? She lowered her voice and said, Be as arrogant as you want. You can be arrogant all you want. Let's see how long you can last. She didn't believe that Chu Luyue could still be so calm after everything was exposed. Chu Luyue raised her brows. You can watch. With that, she turned around, intending to follow the two. Luyu. Yuchi-song called her worriedly. Yang Qin, didn't come with good intentions. It seemed like she was here for Luyu. What could it be about, the Tianling God realm? Chu Luyue comforted her. Don't worry. Little Zhou and I will be fine. Seeing the confident expression on the girl's face, Yuchi-song's heart also calmed down a little. Be careful. I'll wait for you here. Chu Luyue nodded and left with Chang Wanzhou. Seeing this, Yang Qin'er couldn't make up her mind. Could it be that Chu Luyue already had a way to deal with it? Why are you still in a daze? Ning Jiaojia walked up and saw that Yang Qin'er's expression wasn't right. Didn't they already agree on this? Yang Qin'er glanced at Ning Jiaojia and felt a little more at ease. It's nothing. Let's go. In the quiet room, a faint sandalwood fragrance filled the air. This was a type of sandalwood that Shang Guanwan loved very much. It could calm one's mind. When she was anxious or couldn't sleep at night, she only needed to light a little of this sandalwood to calm her down. But today, this sandalwood seemed to be useless. Even though the fragrance kept lingering around her nose, her anxious and depressed mood didn't calm down at all. Instead, it became more and more intense as time passed. She and Jiang Yuqing sat at the head of the table, while Chu Luyue and the others stood not far in front of them. Shang Guanwan looked at Yang Qin'er sternly. Now you can speak. Yang Qin'er took a deep breath. She seemed to have expended a lot of effort before she finally made up her mind. Third princess. I would like to report Chu Luyue for using despicable means to steal the Long Yuan sword in the Tianling God realm. As soon as he finished speaking, Shang Guanwan suddenly stood up. She was both shocked and angry. What did you say? Jiang Yuqing's face was also full of shock, and he didn't come back to his senses for a long time. Long Yuan sword, Long Yuan sword. Wasn't that the artifact personally forged by Taizu of the Tianling dynasty? Yang Qin'er knelt down again with a thud. Third princess. Chu Luyue came from a lowly background, but he was audacious enough to snatch the Long Yuan sword that belonged to the Tianling royal family. Such behavior deserved to be punished. Every word that this commoner said was true. I didn't lie at all. Third princess, please judge clearly. It was a simple sentence, but it was like a clap of thunder on the ground. It stirred up countless waves. Shang Guanwan's brows were tightly knitted together. No matter how bold Yang Qin'er was, she definitely wouldn't dare to joke about the Long Yuan sword. She stared at Chu Luyue. Chu Luyue, is what she said true? Chu Luyue's expression was calm as he said lightly. Third princess, I don't admit to a single word that Yang Qin'er said. Yang Qin'er sneered. You don't admit? Chu Luyue, do you dare to say that the person who rushed out of the crater and snatched the Long Yuan sword in the Tianling God realm wasn't you? At that time, that ball of light was too glaring. She could only vaguely see a figure inside, but she couldn't identify who it was. After she was eliminated, she heard that Chu Luyue actually came out after her and took first place. Only then did she realize that the person at that time must be Chu Luyue, because only Chu Luyue rushed into the golden sea of fire in the crater before them. In this way, the things that happened later had a reasonable explanation. The Long Yuan sword recognized Chu Luyue as its owner. Without a doubt. Chu Luyue was shocked. What exactly are you talking about? It's fine if you don't admit it. The witnesses are right here. Yang Qin looked at Chou Ding and Ning Jiaojiao. At that time, Chu Luyue fell into the crater in the Tianling God realm and disappeared. We all thought that she had already been eliminated. Apart from that, there were only the four of us near the Long Yuan sword. Chou Ding, you were also there when the Long Yuan sword awakened, right? Chou Ding nodded and said in a low voice, That's right. That's right. At that time, The Long Yuan sword had indeed started to awaken. As its surrounding aura became stronger and stronger, I couldn't take it anymore and took the initiative to leave. As for what happened after that, I really don't know. Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing were deeply shocked. The Long Yuan sword awakened? The Long Yuan sword that had been asleep for thousands of years actually awakened again. And they knew nothing about it. If Yang Qin hadn't taken the initiative to speak, they would have been kept in the dark. Shangguan Wan's heart was about to explode. The awakening of the Long Yuan sword meant that it had to choose a new owner. For thousands of years, the Tianling royal family had always wanted to invite the Long Yuan sword out, but they had never succeeded. They didn't expect that the Long Yuan sword would awaken, just because the Wanzheng competition was held once. Shangguan Wan really regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. "Continue," she said with gritted teeth. Ning Jiaojiao curtsied and said, "Third princess." After Chou Ding left, Yang Qiner and I discussed going together to see who was trying to snatch the Long Yuan sword. Hence we set off together. Unexpectedly, just as we moved, Chang Wanzhou chased after us and fought with us. At that time both of us were very confused. We didn't have any grudges with Chang Wanzhou, so why did he suddenly rush out to stop us? Later on, we understood that it was because the person who wanted to snatch the Long Yuan sword was Chu Luyue. Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing both looked at Chang Wanzhou. That's right. Everyone could tell that Chang Wanzhou and Chu Luyue were very close. It could even be said that Chang Wanzhou listened to Chu Luyue on everything. Who else could make him help other than Chu Luyue? Later on, I fought with Chang Wanzhou and was defeated not long after, so I was eliminated from the Tianling God realm. After I came out, I inadvertently saw Chu Luyue's name still on the black jade board. Only then did I vaguely guess that that person was Chu Luyue. Shangguan Wan's face was gloomy. Yang Qin was relieved to see this. She guessed correctly. The Tianling God realm's Long Yuan sword was indeed the Tianling royal family's reverse scale. Whoever touched it would die. Since Chu Luyue really dared to snatch the Long Yuan sword, then he would have to bear the wrath and responsibility of the Tianling royal family. She continued, "After Ning Jiaojiao was eliminated, I wanted to fight with that person, but that person sent a mythical beast to deal with me. If I didn't see wrongly, that should be the legendary mythical beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle. I wasn't a match for that mythical beast and was defeated. Chang Wanzhou also chased after me. I couldn't handle it alone, so I was quickly eliminated. Chang Wanzhou stabbed me in the chest, and the wound is still there." At this point, Yang Qiner's voice trembled slightly, and a trace of deep hatred flashed across her eyes. "And when I left the Tianling God realm, I happened to see that person pulling out the Long Yuan sword." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 547. That proved that the Long Yuan sword had already recognized its master. Shangguan Wan's heart was in a mess as she stared at Chu Luyue. "Now that these people have accused you of stealing the Long Yuan sword, what else do you have to say?" Chu Luyue looked calm. "I didn't do it. Even if you ask me 1,000 times, I will only say this. I didn't do it." She looked very confident, and didn't seem like she was lying. Shangguan Wan couldn't make up her mind. On the one hand, since Yang Qin and the rest dared to make a scene in front of her, they definitely had evidence. What they said just now was also true. On the other hand, the Long Yuan sword was left behind by Taizu. Logically speaking, only people with the Tianling royal bloodline could have a chance to awaken it. Chu Luyue wouldn't have a chance. Yang Qin was so angry that she wanted to laugh. "Chu Luyue, now that things have come to this, the evidence is irrefutable. Are you still not willing to admit it? How long are you going to deny it?" Chu Luyue said calmly, "Why should I admit to something that I didn't do?" Yang Qin was about to retort when Chu Luyue continued. "The so-called irrefutable evidence is actually just the testimony of the few of you. There's no substantial evidence at all, right?" In detail, Chou Ding only saw the Long Yuan sword awakening. As for the so-called someone stole the Long Yuan sword, only you and Ning Jiaojia saw it, right? "Oh no, Chang Wanzhou," Chang Wanzhou suddenly said. "I didn't see the scene that they were talking about. Yang Qin said angrily. You said you didn't see it? Then why did you fight with the two of us? The injuries on her body were real. Chang Wanzhou pointed at Ning Jiaojiao. You used despicable means to eliminate people, and pushed the blame to Lu Yu. Ning Jiaojiao's expression suddenly froze. Chang Wanzhou pointed at Yang Qin. You, along with two senior brothers from the Purple Shao Sword sect, wanted to snatch Lu Yu's treasure. After being rejected, you flew into a rage out of humiliation and attacked her. Yang Qin's eyelids twitched. It's obvious that you're in the wrong first. Don't tell me you're not allowed to fight back? As for your injuries, you're just too weak. Chang Wanzhou's expression was cold. Every word he said was self-righteous. Yang Qin felt guilty at first. You have a close relationship with Chu Luyue, so of course you would speak up for her. What you've said is nothing more than the words of a single person. It's simply not trustworthy. No matter what happened at that time really happened. Chu Luyue had no way to deny it. Jiang Yuqing stared at Chu Luyue and frowned. Chu Luyue, other than Chang Wanzhou, do you have any other excuses? Chu Luyue didn't say anything. Ning Jiaojia sneered. Of course she has nothing to say, because she was indeed the one who did it. Shang Guanwan took a step forward. The pressure on her body was extremely strong. She looked at Chu Luyue condescendingly. Chu Luyue, if you can't prove your innocence then, you'll stay in Exionly Garden today. Chu Luyue looked up slightly. Shang Guanwan's face didn't seem to change, but the emotions in her eyes were clearly seen by Ning Jiaojiao. Perhaps Shang Guanwan could fool others, but she couldn't fool Ning Jiaojiao. Shock, anger, jealousy. Shang Guanwan would probably be annoyed to death if she saw her face now. Of course, she wouldn't have any good impression of her. In fact, Chu Luyue could even clearly feel Shang Guanwan's deep hostility towards her. She had no doubt that Shang Guanwan would definitely think of ways to kill her once she had the chance. Now, if she couldn't clear her name, what awaited her would definitely be torture. The corners of Chu Luyue's lips twitched slightly. Of course I can. The room was silent for a moment. Yang Qin narrowed her eyes and didn't think much of it. A cornered beast will still fight. First I have a fiend. Chu Luyue raised her hand, and a red figure instantly appeared in her palm. That was a furry blood ferret? The air froze for a moment. With Chu Luyue's talent and strength, logically speaking, her requirements for a fiend should be very high. How could she contract with a third-grade fiend? And it was the type with the least combat power. Yang Qin, and Ning Jiaojiao's expressions changed at the same time. Impossible. How could you have a blood ferret as your fiend? Yang Qin blurted out. Chu Luyue glanced at her. Dumpling was immediately unhappy, and bared its teeth at her fiercely. Who are you looking down on? I'm also very powerful, okay? Why does it sound like I'm not worthy of my master? Since when did this thing have the right to comment on the matters between master and servant? I had this blood ferret when I was still in country Yaochun. Vice Admiral Mu has also seen it before, so I can prove it. Chu Luyue directly brought up Mu Qinghe, and immediately shut Yang Qin up. She dared to say that Chu Luyue was lying, but she didn't dare to question Mu Qinghe. When a cultivator has a fiend, they can't contract with other fiends. I believe all of you are well aware of this, so I won't say too much. However, I have to thank Miss Yang for thinking highly of me, and thinking that I can contract with a mythical beast. I'll take your blessings first. If I really contract with a mythical beast in the future, I definitely won't forget you. Yang Qin choked and was speechless. Shang Guanwan and Jiang Yuqing looked at each other, and saw some doubt in each other's eyes. Chu Luyue's words weren't without reason. Even in the Tianling dynasty, the traces of a mythical beast were extremely difficult to track down. Didn't Shang Guanyu only contract with a 9-colored heavenly pheasant, and not a mythical beast? To say that Chu Luyue's fiend was a legendary three-eyed eagle, it was indeed a little ridiculous. Chu Luyue pinched Dumpling's ear to comfort her. Dumpling jumped onto her shoulder, but it was still puffing its cheeks in anger. Because of this small body, it was always looked down upon. It was really too much. If it wasn't for the fact that it had to cooperate with Chu Luyue, it would have already rushed over and scratched Yang Qin's face. Its black eyes were filled with murderous intent as it glared at Yang Qin. Yang Qin suddenly felt a chill down her spine. Secondly, The Tianling God realm is where Taizu passed away back then. I heard that before the Wanzheng competition, the Tianling God realm had never been open to outsiders. This is the first and only time it's open to non-members of the Tianling royal family. The Long Yuan sword is a legendary artifact. Even if it wants to awaken and choose a new master, it will definitely be decided by the sword soul. Do you think that the Long Yuan sword will choose someone like me, who comes from an ordinary background and has nothing to do with the Tianling royal family, as its new master? Where are you putting the third princess and the other members of the Tianling royal family? Chu Lue spoke slowly, but every word was hurtful. Yang Qin, and Ning Jiaojiao suddenly realized that something was wrong. They hurriedly looked at Sheng Guanwan and saw that her face had indeed darkened. In fact, this was also a sore point for Sheng Guanwan. She had always wanted to enter the Tianling God realm, but she didn't have the chance in the past. After Sheng Guanyu died, she thought that it was finally her turn. However, her Yuan meridian was completely destroyed, and she could no longer enter the Tianling God realm. Chu Lue gently stroked her glabella. Thirdly, and this is also the most important point, the Long Yuan sword still exists in the Tianling God realm. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 548. You're spouting nonsense. Yang Qin walked forward agitatedly, and her finger almost poked Chu Lue's face. I saw you draw out the Long Yuan sword with my own eyes. Invite any elder to enter the Tianling God realm, and you'll know whether I'm telling the truth or not. Chu Lue raised her hand and brushed Yang Qin's hand away. Of course, the third princess can also go in to check and see who's lying. Sheng Guanwan clenched her teeth. Of course, she wanted to enter the Tianling God realm, but now that her Yuan meridian was damaged, she would die if she went in. She had been putting on a disguise for the past year, trying her best not to let others see that there was a problem with her cultivation. If she really went to the Tianling God realm, her lie would be exposed immediately. She suppressed the anger and indignation in her heart, turned around, and walked to Jiang Yuqing's side. Jiang Yuqing saw that something was wrong with her expression and immediately said, I'll send Elder Duanmu to check immediately. Sheng Guanwan nodded, but the emotions in her heart could not be calmed down no matter what. Jiang Yuqing knew that she had suffered quite a blow today. First it was Chu Lue, and now it was the Tianling God realm. It wasn't a suitable choice to stay here any longer. He looked at Chu Lue and the others. All of you can leave first. When the results are out, the third princess and I will make our own decisions. Chu Lue had wanted to leave long ago. She really felt disgusted looking at these two faces. It was already very rare to be able to last so long. Thus, she answered without any hesitation and turned to leave. Little Zhou, let's go. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao looked at each other. That's it. We put in so much effort to defeat Chu Lue. But this was the result? Ning Jiaojiao asked unwillingly. Third princess, you can't let Chu Lue leave so easily. Didn't you hear what I said just now? Jiang Yuqing suddenly interrupted Ning Jiaojiao with a cold expression. Ning Jiaojiao was shocked and quickly said, No. We will leave now. Yang Qin wanted to say something, but when she saw Jiang Yuqing's expression, she swallowed her words. Although she hadn't been in West Hill for long, she had heard a lot of rumors about Jiang Yuqing. He was not someone to be trifled with. Chou Ding had already taken his leave. Yang Qin and Ning Jiaojiao stayed for a while before leaving reluctantly. As soon as he walked out of the room, Chu Lue saw Yu Qisong waiting not far away. Yi Ranran was also by his side. Hearing the commotion, the two of them turned their gazes over worriedly. Originally, they wanted to welcome them, but there were many people around, so they could only stay where they were and wait for Chu Lue and Xiao Luo to walk over. Lu Yu Wanzhou, how are you guys? Wei Qisong scanned the two of them from head to toe as soon as he saw them. Chu Lue smiled. What can happen to us? It's just that the third princess called us over to ask some questions. Really? Yu Qisong naturally didn't believe it. Judging from Yang Qin's expression just now, it was definitely not that simple. Of course. Aren't we fine now? It's getting late. Let's go back first. Yuchi-song could tell that Chu Luyue had some things that were inconvenient for him to say, so he didn't ask anymore, and only nodded vigorously. Okay, let's go back. Chu Luyue and the others left safely. Yang Qin, and Ning Jiaojiao weren't so relaxed. The two of them walked out of the door one after another, and were blocked by Chou Ding, who was waiting outside. He was burly like a small mountain, and gave off an oppressive aura. I don't care what you want to do, but don't involve me in this kind of thing in the future, Chou Ding said sternly. At first, he didn't understand what was going on, but later on he saw it clearly. These two clearly wanted to lay their hands on Chu Luyue, and even dragged him down. Originally, this matter had nothing to do with him, but now, he had heard and seen it. He was completely tied to this matter. Although it wouldn't cause him to be punished, the feeling of being used for no reason was really disgusting. Ning Jiaojiao was frustrated, and wasn't in the mood to deal with him. Got it? Chou Ding looked at the two of them warningly before leaving. Ning Jiaojiao was frustrated and could only vent her anger on Yang Qin in the end. Didn't you say that it was foolproof? What's going on now? Yang Qin wasn't any better than Ning Jiaojiao. Chu Luyue caught them off guard. Until now, she still didn't understand how Chu Luyue had the guts to let Shangguan Wan and the others check the Tianling God realm. She remembered clearly that the Long Yuan sword was loose at that time. How could it still be there? Could it be that Chu Luyue really didn't take the Long Yuan sword in the end? But that was the Long Yuan sword. How could Chu Luyue not be tempted by such a powerful legendary weapon? Seeing that Yang Qin wasn't moving, Ning Jiaojiao couldn't help but push her. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Yang Qin slapped her hand away and said impatiently, I'm listening. Do you think I'm not annoyed? If you have the time and energy to complain, why don't you think about what to do next? Ning Jiaojiao had a temper and was rarely contradicted like this, let alone by Yang Qin who didn't have any background. She crossed her arms and said coldly, What do you mean by this? Weren't you the one who told me about this first? Now that you've dragged me down, it's clearly your fault, but you want to push the blame to me. If you didn't see it clearly in the end, how would things have turned out like this? Yang Qin sneered. Now that things have come to this, it's useless no matter what you say. When the third princess's results are out, it won't be too late for you to come and reason with me. If it's really as Chu Luyue said, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Ning Jiaojiao lowered her voice and said hatefully before leaving angrily. Yang Qin didn't show it on her face, but when she recalled Chu Luyue's confident expression just now, she felt a little guilty. After the few of them left, only Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing were left in the room. Shangguan Wan sat motionlessly on the chair with a gloomy expression and resentment in her eyes. Jiang Yuqing walked out and saw this scene when he returned after instructing Chan Yi and Sun Qi on what to do. He paused for a moment, but still walked over. Wan you already knew, didn't you? Shangguan Wan suddenly spoke, her voice cold. Jiang Yuqing frowned. What? Shangguan Wan looked up and stared into his eyes. You've seen Chu Luyue before. Why didn't you tell me that she looked like this? It was indeed because of this. Jiang Yuqing sighed in his heart and said, It's just a face. It's just a face that's somewhat similar. Why do you care so much about it? A strange sneer suddenly came from Shangguan Wan's throat. Oh, is that really what you think? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 549. Her voice made Jiang Yuqing very uncomfortable. However, he still endured it and leaned over. Of course it's true. When have I ever lied to you? Actually, I don't like her very much either, but I didn't expect her to become the champion of the Wanzhong competition. Even if it's for her Yuan Meridian, you have to endure it for the time being. Shangguan Wan wasn't as easy to coax as before. The incident in the Tianling God realm had a huge impact on her. So much so that she was a little out of control now. She stood up abruptly and questioned, What? Oh, you dare to say that you really didn't think of anything when you saw her face? If you didn't feel guilty, why didn't you tell me anything before? God knew how shocked she was when she saw Chu Luyue smile for the first time today. If Jiang Yuqing had reminded her previously, she wouldn't have lost her composure like that. What's there to feel guilty about? You just like to let your imagination run wild. I didn't tell you before because I felt that this matter wasn't worth mentioning at all. You've been too tired recently, so you're feeling uneasy. When your Yuan meridian recovers, everything won't be a problem anymore. Jiang Yuqing knew Sheng Guanwan's weakness too well, so he could always persuade her. As expected, Sheng Guanwan's expression improved a lot at the mention of this. Jiang Yuqing coaxed Sheng Guanwan for a while more before she was completely appeased. In the end, Jiang Yuqing personally sent Sheng Guanwan back to the palace and watched her lie down to rest before finally leaving. After Jiang Yuqing left for a while, Chani walked in. Third princess, young master Jiang has left. Sheng Guanwan opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear and bright, and she didn't look sleepy at all. She sat up and thought for a moment before instructing. Chani, go and check on that Chu Luyue and find out her background. If there's anything wrong, report back immediately. Also get someone to keep an eye on the Jiang family. See if there's anything unusual recently. Chani respectfully acknowledged the order and retreated. Only Sheng Guanwan was left in the hall. She lit the sandalwood incense and wanted to take a nap. However, as soon as he closed his eyes, Chu Liyue's face would appear in his mind. And that face always made her think of more terrible things. After doing this a few times, she was so annoyed that she smashed everything in the house into pieces. She only stopped when there was nothing left to throw. Men! She finally opened her mouth and shouted. The palace servants outside immediately walked in. Clean this up, Sheng Guanwan ordered. The palace servants all lowered their heads. There was no surprise on their faces. Obviously, this was not the first time they had encountered such a situation. After tidying everything up in an orderly manner, another batch of identical items was placed on the table. It looked exactly the same as before. Sheng Guanwan finally gave up. On the other side, Chu Liyue's group left Exionly Garden. Yu Qisong wanted to bring the two of them back to the Chongshu Pavilion, but Chu Liyue declined. When he heard that Chu Liyue was planning to buy a house in Weiling, Yu Qisong was a little surprised. When he saw Chu Liyue for the first time that day, the people from the Mu clan followed by her side. It was as if they treated Chu Liyue as an honored guest. She was living well in the Mu clan. Why did she suddenly want to move out? When Chu Liyue saw his expression, she knew that he had misunderstood, so she explained. Pavilion Master. I was chosen by Vice Admiral Mu, but it was Jian Fengqi who brought me here. Other than that, I have no other relationship with them. Only then did Yu Qisong realize that he had thought too much. He coughed awkwardly. I see. The rumors in Weiling recently seemed to be true. Even he was starting to believe them. It's not appropriate to keep living in the Mu clan. Little Zhou and I have already moved out. Although they said they were moving out, the two of them did not have much stuff. Yu Qisong suddenly asked. Then do you have a choice? Chu Liyue shook her head. The Wanzhong competition had just ended. They did not have time to deal with these things. That was why she planned to find a place to stay with little Zhou before going to the Chongshu Pavilion. Yu Qisong's expression changed slightly. If you don't mind, I have an empty house for you to stay in. The group walked 3 streets and arrived in front of a house. Chu Liyue looked at the familiar door in front of her and was stunned for a moment. Isn't this Yu Qisong's house in Weiling City? In the past, when he was free, he liked to stay here for a while. Chu Liyue had also been here many times. Although this house is a little remote, it's quiet. If you don't mind, you can stay here. As Yu Qisong spoke, he pushed open the door. There was no one inside, and many things had been packed up. Recalling the scene of Yu Qisong selling seals at 100 Herbs Building, Chu Liyue frowned slightly. Is he planning to sell this place too? Seeing Chu Liyue's expression, Yu Qisong thought that Chu Liyue did not like it. Actually, no one has lived in this house for a long time. If you don't like it. No, this house is very good. Little Zhou and I like peace and quiet. This place is just right. Chu Liyue hurriedly spoke and smiled brightly at Yu Qisong. If not for your help, little Zhou, and I don't know when we would have found a house that we like. Yu Qisong was also very happy. It's good that you like it. It's good that you like it. Chu Liyue said. Pavilion Master, little Zhou and I can't stay in your house for free. Yu Qisong immediately shook his head. Lu Yu, you and Wanzhou are already disciples of Chongshu Pavilion. There's really no need to be so polite. Besides, I'm really happy that you chose Chongshu Pavilion today. Compared to all of this, a house was nothing. Yu Qisong was sincere. If it weren't for Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou today, Chongshu Pavilion basically wouldn't have anyone to choose. In the end, it would only become a laughing stock. They were helping Chongsu Cabinet, and helping him save his last bit of face. Chu Liyue wanted to say something but hesitated. Yu Qisong was obviously short of money now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have started to sell these things. But he would never take his money. Chu Liyue thought for a moment and said, Pavilion Master, I have something to talk to you about. Is it convenient for you? Yu Qisong felt a little strange, but he still nodded. Of course. Chang Wanzhou and Yi Ranran knew that the two had something to discuss, so they stayed where they were. Chu Liyue and Yu Qisong went to another small courtyard. Lu Yu, what do you want to talk about? Yu Qisong looked at Chu Liyue kindly. Chu Liyue took a deep breath, took out a wooden box from his universe ring, and handed it over. Yu Qisong's expression froze. This was clearly what he sold in 100 Herbs building that day. How could it be in Chu Liyue's hands? Chu Liyue said softly. Pavilion Master, I bought this after you left that day. Now, it's returned to its original owner. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 550. Yu Qisong didn't expect that what Chu Liyue wanted to talk to him about was actually this. He looked at the wooden box with a complicated gaze and shook his head. Since you've already bought it, it's yours. You don't have to return it to me. Chu Liyue persistently pushed it forward. You said that it's mine. Then it's my freedom to do whatever I want with it now, isn't it? Yu Qisong was stunned. Pavilion Master, you've helped me and Xiaozhou. Take this as our return gift. If you don't want to accept it, then we really can't live here with a clear conscience. I'm afraid we'll have to find another place to live. Chu Liyue sighed softly. The price of your courtyard is definitely higher than the price of this seal. Speaking of which, we've made a profit. Besides, I saw that you were really reluctant to part with this thing that day. It must have a very special meaning to you, right? Since that's the case, please accept it. Yu Qisong hesitated for a long time, before finally taking the wooden box. Chu Liyue was right. This seal wasn't his most valuable item, but he cherished it very much. Now that it was back in his hands after going through so much trouble. Lu Yu, thank you very much. Yu Qisong looked at Chu Liyue and said solemnly. Chu Liyue's eyes moved slightly, and he smiled. I'm also a member of the Chongshu Pavilion now. Do you still need to thank me? In the future, I'll have to rely on you a lot. Yu Qisong put away the wooden box. Knowing that Chu Liyue was deliberately teasing him, he couldn't help but laugh. Since this matter has been resolved, when are you going to the Chongshu Pavilion? Chu Liyue blinked. I'm afraid it'll take some time. I still have something to do. Yu Qisong asked curiously. What's the matter? Chu Liyue revealed a meaningful smile. Naturally, it's about money. Spring Breeze Restaurant. In a private room on the second floor. Jian Fengqi was lying on the couch as usual. One of his long legs was curled up, one hand resting on his head, and gently waving the bone fan. Outside the screen, Shui Luer was playing the pipa. Jian Fengqi lazily closed his eyes as he listened to the music. He was so carefree and happy. Shui Luer was in a particularly good mood today. It was rare for her to finish playing a complete song. When the last sound fell, it really lingered in the air, lingering for 3 days. Only then did Shui Luer get up and walk behind the screen with the pipa in her arms. Then she bent her knees and bowed. Young master, the song's over. Jian Fengqi opened one of his eyes and smiled as he threw a cosmic ring over. I'll take it. S to you, to me to you, you to S to you. Teet tees to test sot, S to you. Jian Fengqi smiled. 2 T's. Little Luer. You're the only one in the entire West Hill. Shui Luer raised her eyebrows. Of course it's because my song's worth the price. Jian Fengqi did not argue with her. He just smiled. Shui Lu sat down beside him. Back to the topic. I was interrupted when I just started talking about what happened last time. Since we have time today, it's time for you to talk to me. Jian Fengqi stretched. I knew you were going to ask this. I've just won some money, and I'm very tired. Can't you let me have a good rest? Shui Lu smiled like a spring breeze. Haven't you been resting since yesterday? Isn't it enough? Jian Fengqi immediately sat up. Cough cough, this young master was just speaking casually. Don't mind it, little Luer. However, Shui Luer did not reply. An extremely gentle smile appeared on her delicate and charming face. Jian Fengqi coughed. I've made some progress on the matter you asked me to investigate. Shui Luer's expression turned serious. You guessed right. That person does enter the palace every once in a while. Nominally, he's a celestial physician who treats the emperor, but in reality, his whereabouts are very secretive. His background is very mysterious. I've looked into it for a long time, and his identity is indeed fake. As expected, Shui Lu murmured. I knew there was something wrong with that person. Have you found out his true identity? Jian Fengqi smiled bitterly. My little Luer, you think too highly of me. Do you think it's so easy to find out the identity of the emperor's celestial physician? I can't enter the palace every day. It's already not easy to find out about this, okay? Besides, I've been busy with mooching his matter. I don't have time. Shui Luer pursed her red lips. Everyone in Shilling City knows that you two are rivals. Who would have thought that you're secretly helping him? It's not that I want to say this, but Jian Fengqi, you used to be on equal footing with him. Now you've become his errand boy. You're really something. Jian Fengqi's face darkened. You know that. I don't know anything. Shui Luer's expression turned a little colder. I've never stopped you if you want to interact with him. You have your reasons. But you can distinguish between right and wrong. Little Luer, actually. I'm not listening. Jian Fengqi shut his mouth and thought to himself, this little Luer looks as gentle as water, but she's actually very fierce. She's also stubborn, smelly, and tough. It's a complete waste of saliva to talk to her. He decided to change the topic. Actually, my trip this time wasn't completely fruitless. Guess who I met? Shui Luer glanced at him lazily, as if it was up to him to say it or not. Jian Fengqi sat up straight, leaned in front of her, and gestured a number. 13. Shui Luer didn't realize it at first, but after a while, she suddenly realized something and covered her mouth subconsciously. Her eyes were full of shock. The room fell silent for a moment. After a while, Shui Luer whispered. Really? Her voice was trembling. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. Actually, I didn't see it with my own eyes. I just felt that the aura was very similar. But it's probably right. According to my guess, it's a bit like. He gestured another number. 7. He had always been very sharp in this aspect. Shui Luer was silent for a while. It seems that the rumor is true. They've all gone outside. Of course. Otherwise, how do you think they could hide for so long? In order to capture those 13 people, Jiang Yuqing had put in a lot of effort. If he didn't choose to burn the boats, how could he deal with this overwhelming pursuit? Shui Luer stood up with a serious expression. She hugged the pipa in her arms tightly and paced back and forth. Jian Fengqi knew that this was her reaction when she was nervous. Although so much time had passed, she was still very concerned about this matter. But they can't keep doing this. Shui Luer suddenly stopped halfway and quickly turned around. Outside the tightly locked door, there was the sound of light and quick footsteps. A clear female voice rang out with a hint of a smile on her face. Young Master Jian, are you inside? Jian Fengqi was stunned. Chuluyue. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 551. How did she find this place? Jian Fengqi's mind turned, and he immediately understood why Chuluyue was here. She's clearly here for money. His face darkened at the thought of this. Shui Luer quickly returned to her seat outside the screen, looking as if she had just finished playing. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Jian Fengqi's face darkened even more. She already knew which room he was in, so why was she still knocking? Seeing that he was not moving, Shui Luer went to open the door. As soon as the door opened, a beautiful woman's face came into view. Shui Luer played in Spring Breeze restaurant every day and had seen countless beautiful women. But when this woman appeared in front of her, her eyes still lit up. She revealed a faint smile. "Miss." Chu Luya looked at the woman in front of her, a trace of surprise flashing through her eyes. Why was Shui Luer in Spring Breeze restaurant? Wasn't she from Jinchuan? There was once a popular saying, "Luer's music moves Jinchuan." It praised Shui Luer for playing the people well. Jinchuan was thousands of miles away from the Western Tomb, so why was she here? The women in Spring Breeze restaurant sold their skills, not their bodies. Moreover, the cost was extremely high. Ordinary people could not even afford a sip of tea here, let alone listen to the women play and sing. It seemed that Shui Luer had become the top hostess of Spring Breeze restaurant. She suppressed the surprise in her heart and smiled. "I'm Chu Luyue." Shui Luer was stunned. Chu Luyue's name was like thunder in the Western Tomb recently. She did not expect her to look like this. Shui Luer greets Miss Chu. Chu Luyue glanced into the room. "Is young Master Jian inside?" Shui Luer gently nodded. "Little Lu, I won't see anyone today." Jian Fengqi's lazy voice came from inside. Shui Luer secretly cursed Jian Fengqi for using her as a shield again. But she still looked at Chu Luyue with a troubled expression. "Miss Chu, you see," Chu Luyue suddenly said. "Sister Shui Luer, your hairpin is crooked." "Ah." Shui Luer was shocked. She quickly turned around and walked to the front of the bronze mirror. She carefully looked at the hairpin on her head. Chu Luyue couldn't help but smile inwardly. Shui Luer cared a lot about hair accessories. Other than the pipa, that was the second most important thing to her. Sure enough, nothing had changed. While Shui Luer was looking at the mirror, she walked in and went behind the screen. Jian Fengqi did not expect her to barge in directly, and he was stunned for a moment. "Young Master Jian, it seems like you've been living a carefree life." Chu Luyue sighed sincerely. When she came up, she had already heard that Jian Fengqi had booked all the girls' venues, but she didn't expect it to be the most expensive one. Shui Luer, if he hadn't relied on her to earn money, would he have squandered it like this? Jian Fengqi finally reacted. "Why are you here?" Little Luer. After Shui Luer was done with her hairpin, she heard Jian Fengqi's voice. She turned around and saw that Chu Luyue had already walked in. Her heart skipped a beat. In a moment of carelessness, she actually forgot about this. Chu Luyue smiled at Shui Luer. "Miss Luer, don't worry. This has nothing to do with you." Shui Luer was stunned. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. No wonder she felt that Chu Luyue looked familiar. Those eyebrows. Chu Luyue looked at Jian Fengqi. "Young Master Jian, actually, I'm here to ask you if you've forgotten something." Jian Fengqi saw that he couldn't avoid it anymore. He held his forehead in pain. I didn't forget. I promised to give you the money, not a single cent less. However, this young master has placed bets in all the major casinos. It'll take a few days for all these debts to be settled. I can only give you the money after I've settled everything, right?" However, Chu Luyue didn't fall for his trick. His smile became even warmer. "I heard that in Shilling City, young Master Jian is famous for being a playboy. You're also a frequent customer of all the casinos. Even if their debts haven't been settled, you should at least remember how much money you've placed, right?" Jian Fengqi's brain was very good. He always remembered clearly when it came to eating, drinking, and playing. This time, he had clearly made up his mind to make a huge profit. How could he forget how much he had bet? "I'm not asking for much. It's only 1/10 of your profits. You should still be able to fork out this small amount of money, right?" As Chu Luyue spoke, he let out a long sigh and revealed a worried expression. "To be honest, I have no other choice. That's why I personally came to Chunfeng restaurant to look for you. I'm really short on money." Jian Fengqi's mouth twitched. Where in the world did this lass hear all this from? She did all the talking. Are you kidding me? You're short on money. Jian Fengqi looked at her suspiciously. You're living and eating at the Mu residence. Could it be that Mu Qinghe doesn't give you any money? He's not that stingy, is he? Chu Luyue thought that Mu Qinghe really had nothing to do with being stingy. Jian Fengqi, on the other hand, was very clear about it. Young Master Jian, you might not know, but I've already moved out of the Mu residence. Jian Fengqi was stunned. Oh, why did you suddenly move out? For the current Chu Luyue, the Mu residence was actually an excellent choice. She had just won the Wanzhong competition, and now she wanted to cut ties with Mu Qinghe? Chu Luyue couldn't be bothered to explain too much to him. She only said that she was already a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion and would be living in Xiling in the future. That was why she found herself a house. Everything in Xiling is good, but the prices are too high. Food, clothing, housing, transportation, everything costs money. Young Master Jian, can you really bear to see me living on the streets? Chu Luyue said sincerely. Jian Fengqi's mouth twitched. She would live on the streets. It would be good enough if she didn't let others live on the streets. Actually, I've bet most of my money in the casino. I haven't gotten back a lot of it, so I really can't take out so much in such a short time. How about I give you a portion first? Jian Fengqi was about to negotiate with Chu Luyue. However, as soon as he said that, he received a disdainful look from Shui Lu'er. TSK, this guy took out 100,000 white crystal coins without batting an eyelid. Now he's pretending to be poor. From what he said, it was obvious that he had promised to share the money with Chu Luyue. But now he wanted to renege on his promise. Bah! Useless! She walked up and gently persuaded him. Young Master Jian, you've always been a man of your words and generous. Now that Miss Chu is in trouble, you'll help her, right? Previously, there was a rumor that Jian Fengqi liked Chu Luyue, but now it seemed to be complete nonsense. Jian Fengqi suddenly felt a lot of pressure. Finally, he gritted his teeth. Then I'll think of a way to raise the money. As he spoke, he took out a universe ring. Then, he took out another universe ring. When he took out the fifth universe ring, Shui Lu'er's expression gradually froze. However, Jian Fengqi didn't stop. How much did he win? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 552. Jian Fengqi took out a total of 8 Qiankuan rings. These should be enough. Jian Fengqi tried his best not to look at the 8 Qiankuan rings, but his heart was still bleeding. Chu Luyue checked them one by one, and finally showed a satisfied smile. That's more like it. She carefully put away the 8 Qiankuan rings, and looked at Jian Fengqi. She said with utmost sincerity, Young Master Jian, without this money of yours, I really can't do anything in West Hill. I really don't know how to thank you. Jian Fengqi seemed to have lost all his strength as he waved his hand weakly. You can go. You're welcome. Last time, Chu Luyue took away so much money from him because of the word thank you. Now that he heard her say that word again, his heart was trembling. This woman is too scary. Shui Lu'er, who was standing beside them, was already stunned. The size of the Qiankuan rings varied according to their level. The ones that Jian Fengqi took out just now were all of high quality, and each of them could hold a lot of things. It went without saying what was inside, and he took out 8 of them at once, and gave them all to Chu Luyue. Most importantly, this seemed to be only 1/10 of his profits. Did he rob all the casinos in the West Hill? Seeing Chu Luyue put away the 8 Qiankuan rings, Shui Lu'er suddenly understood why Jian Fengqi kept delaying, and even tried to act shamelessly. If she had to give away so much money at once, she would be very reluctant. Jian Fengqi looked at her sadly. If she hadn't added fuel to the fire just now, he could have at least delayed it for another day. Although he didn't really intend to go back on his word, this feeling was too good. Chu Luyue didn't plan to stay after successfully getting the money, so he directly bid farewell. If that's the case, I won't disturb young Master Jian from listening to the music. Jian Fengqi waved his hand weakly again. If he looked at Chu Luyue again, he would feel that another piece of his flesh had been cut off. Chu Luyue bowed and was about to leave. However, the moment she turned around, she caught a glimpse of a square jade pendant on Jian Fengqi's couch. It seemed to have fallen off his body. The jade token was translucent white, and looked very ordinary. However, the edges of the jade token were engraved with exquisite cloud patterns. In the middle of it, there was a small word engraved. Medicine. Chu Luyue was shocked. This jade pendant was clearly something that only the celestial physician of the Tianling royal family would have. How could Jian Fengqi have something like this? Seeing Chu Luiyue hesitating and not leaving, Jian Fengqi asked curiously, Weren't you going to leave? Chu Luiyue snapped out of her daze and glanced at Jian Fengqi's sleeve without batting an eyelid. She smiled and turned to leave the room. After Chu Luiyue left, Shui Luer walked over. Don't you think that Chu Luiyue looks like? Why is that thing there? She was shocked and pointed at the jade pendant on the couch. Jian Fengqi turned around and realized that the jade pendant had fallen off at some point. He immediately put the jade pendant away, and the lazy expression on his face disappeared. Shui Luer frowned and asked, Did Chu Luiyue see this thing just now? Jian Fengqi hesitated for a moment and said, Probably. However, I don't think she saw it clearly. How could you be so careless? How could you not keep an eye on such an important thing? If she finds out? Don't worry. Very few people have seen this thing before. She wouldn't know what it is. Jian Fengqi shook his head. Shui Luer felt that it made sense. Chu Luiyue came from outside heaven's canopy. Even if she saw it clearly, she wouldn't think too much about it. You must be more careful in the future. Shui Luer rubbed her forehead. Jian Fengqi knew that he was in the wrong and didn't explain himself. He only nodded solemnly. I'll send someone to keep an eye on Chu Luiyue. If there are any abnormalities, we'll talk about it then. Actually, he didn't want to drag Chu Luiyue into this. Unless it was absolutely necessary. He didn't want to make a move on Chu Luiyue. Shui Luer nodded. Jian Fengqi looked at her strangely. Based on your character in the past, you wouldn't let it go so easily. What's wrong this time? Shui Luer glared at him. You told me when I wanted to make a move. You also told me when I didn't want to make a move. Why are you so nosy? I'm just too lazy to make a move on her. Can't I? Jian Fengqi raised his hands in surrender. Shui Luer was extremely frustrated. She hugged her pipa and played a melodious tune full of murderous intent. On the other side, Chu Luiyue walked out of Spring Breeze restaurant and prepared to return to her house. People came and went around her. From time to time, people would recognize her and look at her with different expressions. Chu Luiyue turned a deaf ear to them. Her expression was as usual. However, at this moment, her heart was in turmoil. The scene she saw just now kept replaying in her mind. Every Royal Celestial Physician's brand was specially made. There was no possibility of counterfeiting. That piece must be real. But there were several Royal Celestial Physician. Who could it be? Jian Fengqi couldn't have not recognized that item. However, he didn't return it. It was obvious that he wanted to keep it. Although he was extremely talented in the field of celestial physician, he was afraid of being restrained. Therefore, he had never thought of becoming a royal celestial physician. More importantly, Jian Fengqi's cuff was stained with something. Because it was just a quick glance, she couldn't be 100% sure. But if her guess was correct, what did he want to do with that thing? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 553. Chu Luiyue thought for a long time, but she couldn't figure it out, so she put this matter aside for the time being. She turned around and walked toward 100 Herbs building. On one hand, she planned to redeem the things that Yuqi Song had mortgaged. On the other hand, Chang Wanzhou had already finished all 3 pills in the Tianling God realm. It was time for him to buy some herbs and refine new pills. The cold and evil energy in his body had accumulated for many years, and it definitely couldn't be completely removed overnight. Fortunately, she was rich now. Otherwise, she might not be able to support Chang Wanzhou. Please let us go this time. We already know our mistake. We'll never do such a thing again. Yeah, my family said that if I can't get the ban lifted, they won't let me go back. Please help us. We really didn't mean it that day. Do you really want to force us into a dead end? Even if you don't let us in, it's fine. As long as you don't implicate our families. Chu Luiyue had just arrived at 100 Herbs building when she saw a group of people gathered at the door from afar. She walked closer and saw a few young women standing in front of the 100 Herbs building's door, begging bitterly. A servant stood on the steps with a polite smile on his face, but his words were very cruel and cold. I'm really sorry, ladies. This is an order from the supervisor himself. I'm just a servant. How would I dare to go against the supervisor's wishes? You should go back. We're not the only ones selling herbs in Shilling City, right? A haggard woman smiled bitterly. But only you have some herbs. 100 Herbs Building had a very high status in Shilling City, and they monopolized many kinds of herbs. Some of them could only be bought from them. The servant smiled. Then this has nothing to do with 100 Herbs Building. It's better for you to find another way. After he finished speaking, he gave a look to the guards beside him. A few burly guards immediately stepped forward. Ladies, please. Standing at the door would affect their business. However, the women refused to leave. Where could they go if they left? One of the women directly knelt down with tears on her face. I only ask for manager use mercy. Seeing this, the other two women also knelt down. The expression on the manservant's face turned cold. It seemed that these women were really brainless. They actually dared to make trouble in front of their 100 Herbs Building. Hurry up and ask these ladies to leave. A few guards immediately picked them up, intending to take them away by force. Although these women were also cultivators, they were no match for these guards. They could only struggle madly. The shrill woman's voice sounded very ear-piercing. Chu Luihua frowned slightly. What was 100 Herbs Building doing? He actually dared to chase away a guest in public. Doing business had always been about making money through harmony. A large part of the reason why 100 Herbs Building could develop to its current scale was that they had always treated their customers extremely well. He had never heard of such a thing happening in the 100 Herbs Building before. At this moment, the manservant looked up and saw Chu Luihua in the crowd. A big smile immediately blossomed on his face, and he quickly walked over. Miss Chu, what wind blew you here? Come in, come in. Chu Luihua didn't expect the manservant to be so sharp-eyed that he could recognize her at a glance. She had no choice but to step forward. What she didn't know was that after last time, she had become the most desired customer of all the manservants in the 100 Herbs Building. She was rich and straightforward. She bought whatever she wanted without even blinking her eyes. And she was approachable. She didn't put on airs at all. Chu Luihua wasn't the only black gold card VIP in the 100 Herbs Building, but they were basically all rich and powerful people. They always carried a faint pressure, and were very difficult to serve. But Chu Luihua was different. She was always amiable and had good eyesight. She could often pick out good things after looking around. Could there be a better customer than her? As Chu Luihua walked in, she glanced at the girls from the corner of her eye and casually asked, "What's going on?" The manservant bowed and smiled. "It's nothing. It's just that those women spoke rudely in the 100 Herbs Building before. So the supervisor ordered that they and their families would no longer be received." "Did they disturb you?" Chu Luihua shook her head. No. She didn't know what those women said to be punished so severely. No wonder they were crying and making a fuss here without any regard for their dignity. They were probably forced to do so by their families. In the end, this was a matter of the 100 Herbs Building. Chu Luihua didn't intend to interfere, so she didn't continue asking. However, just as she was about to step through the door, a woman suddenly broke free from the restraint of the guards and rushed behind Chu Luihua. She knelt down with a plop and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Miss Chu, please let us go." Chu Luihua looked back in confusion. This woman was unfamiliar. She had never seen her before. It was clearly the 100 Herbs Building that chose not to serve them. Why was she begging her? The manservant's expression turned cold. He immediately stood in front of Chu Luihua and shouted at the guards, "Are you all incompetent? You should at least take responsibility for disturbing Miss Chu." The people behind hurriedly rushed over and tried to take the woman away. However, the woman seemed to be grasping at straws. She kept begging Chu Luihua for help. "Miss Chu, we know that we were wrong. We shouldn't have criticized you behind your back. But we really didn't mean any harm. Now that we've been punished, please ask manager you to spare us. We beg you." She shouted and cried. Just as she was pulled up, she was forced to kneel on the ground again. She looked really miserable and pitiful. Chu Luihua was confused. This matter had something to do with her? She said to the guards, You guys stop first and let her finish. The guards looked at each other. The manservant immediately said, "Didn't you hear what Miss Chu said? Let them all come here." He looked at the woman and said coldly, "Answer Miss Chu's questions honestly." That woman nodded like she was pounding garlic. She then told Chu Luiyue about what happened that day. Of course, she didn't go into detail about what they criticized Chu Luiyue. She just glossed over it. The rest was frantically begging for mercy. "Miss Chu, we really didn't mean it. We really won't dare to do it again. But this time we beg you." Chu Luiyue fell into silence after hearing this. She didn't speak for a long time. She knew that these people had said something unpleasant. She didn't sympathize with them at all. But in fact, there were many people who criticized her behind her back. If she had to hold everyone accountable, she would have been exhausted. But when did 100 Herbs Building have such a rule? Was the status of a black gold card VIP so high? "Actually, what are you doing?" A quiet and clear voice suddenly sounded. The manservant and the others immediately bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Manager Yu. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 554. Chu Luiyue looked up. A man in his 30s, dressed in a white robe, walked over. He was elegant, refined, and steady. He didn't look like a shrewd businessman, but more like a scholar. It turned out that this person was the manager of the 100 Herbs Building. Yuling walked to Chu Luiyue and stood in front of her, smiling. "It's rare for Miss Chu to visit my humble shop. Why are you standing at the door?" Chu Luiyue was surprised. "Manager Yu knows me?" Yuling smiled and nodded. At the Wanzhong competition, Miss Chu was dazzling. "So you went to watch the Wanzhong competition?" Chu Luiyue also smiled. "Thank you for your praise, Manager Yu. I didn't expect such a busy person like Manager Yu to have such leisure time." Yuling's strength was definitely above that of a 7th-stage warrior. Logically speaking, he wouldn't take these competitions too seriously. Besides, he was the manager of the 100 Herbs Building, not the leader of any gang. It was really strange that he would spend time watching this. Yuling raised his eyebrows slightly. He couldn't say that he went to crazily makeup lessons, right? Miss Chu left as quickly as she came. When she came to the 100 Herbs Building before, he didn't see her and regretted it. He wanted to find an opportunity to meet her, so that he wouldn't not recognize her in the future. However, Chu Luiyue lived in the Mu residence and was heavily guarded, so there was no chance. In the end, he could only choose to go to the Xuanji Square. After waiting for a few days, she finally came out and won first place. Only then did he really look at Chu Luiyue in a new light. That compliment just now was also sincere. Chu Luiyue raised her chin. "I wanted to go in, but I didn't expect to see this scene." Yuling had actually recognized those women long ago. When he rushed over just now and saw those women making a scene in front of Chu Luiyue, he even had the heart to kill those women. If this matter was known by the higher-ups, he would be punished for lack of supervision. If he really angered Chu Luiyue, he felt a chill on his neck. "Miss Chu, please forgive us. We didn't handle this matter well and caused you trouble. How about this? I'll accompany you in the selection." As Yuling spoke, he gave the guard and the servant a warning look. Everyone immediately took action, wanting to take those people away. A woman wanted to say something, but she suddenly felt a powerful pressure descend upon her. Her chest felt stuffy, and she couldn't say a word. The other two women were the same. Chu Luiyue glanced at it and guessed that Yuling had personally taken action. She paused for a moment before continuing. "I heard that this matter is related to me. Miss Chu, you misunderstand. The cause of this incident was that they had publicly humiliated a black gold card VIP in the territory of the 100 Herbs Building. This is not only a humiliation to our honored guests, but also a contempt to our 100 Herbs Building. Until now, it was their own fault for speaking carelessly. Regardless of whether it was you or someone else, the outcome would be the same." Yuling's expression was indifferent, but his tone was unquestionable. He glanced at those people and said indifferently, "If you're not afraid that you won't be able to buy any herbs in Shilling City in the future, you can continue to cause trouble." The struggling movements of the women suddenly froze. The onlookers also fell silent for a moment. This was a blatant threat. No one doubted whether the 100 Herbs building had the ability to do so. Since Yuling dared to say it in public, he could definitely do it. The 100 Herbs building had never taken the initiative to cause trouble. But when faced with such troublemakers, they would definitely not be soft-hearted. Chu Luiyue thought to herself. This manager you look gentle, but he was very bold. No wonder he could support the 100 Herbs building. Those women knew that it was hopeless. If they continued to cause trouble, the situation would only get worse. They had no choice but to leave in a daze. After walking for a distance, the pressure on their bodies dissipated. One of the women couldn't help but murmur in a low voice. What did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? We just casually said a few words. How did this happen? How did this happen? Yuling coldly retracted his gaze. The mistake was that they had offended someone they shouldn't have. He looked at Chu Luiyue. The frost on his face dissipated, and he smiled slightly. Miss Chu, please. Yuling followed Chu Luiyue in. Miss Chu, what do you want to see this time? Many people in the exhibition hall on the first floor looked over with envy in their eyes. The manager of the 100 Herbs building personally accompanied. This was the first time. But Chu Luiyue was a black gold card VIP. Chu Luiyue paused. Like last time, I want 5 times the amount. Yuling raised his eyebrows. Last time, Chu Luiyue directly spent 90,000 white crystal coins here, which was already considered generous. He didn't expect that this time, he would directly ask for so much. 5 times the amount. It was hundreds of thousands of white crystal coins. Even in the entire Shilling City, there were definitely not many people who could take out so much money at once. And looking at Chu Luiyue's expression, he didn't seem to feel sorry at all. The surroundings were silent for a moment. Obviously, they were stunned by Chu Luiyue's big spending. At this time, they suddenly understood why Yuling would forever reject those women, just because they offended Chu Luiyue. Even if they went bankrupt, they couldn't take out so much money. However, this was just the money that Chu Luiyue casually spent. Yuling said to the stunned servant beside him, Why aren't you preparing immediately? For Miss Chu, be sure to choose the best. Yes, yes. The servant suddenly woke up and hurriedly went to transfer the goods. Many servants sighed when they saw this. Why did the manager come today? If he didn't come, any one of them would be involved in Chu Luiyue's order today and would be rich. Unfortunately, the manager stood there as if he wanted to accompany them to the end. They were afraid that they couldn't interfere. Miss Chu, there are some new things on the second floor recently. Do you want to take a look? Yuling asked. Chu Luiyue nodded. Okay, please. After saying that, Yuling led Chu Luiyue to the second floor. After the two of them left for a while, in the quiet exhibition hall on the first floor, someone heaved a heavy sigh. Oh my God, how much money did she spend just now? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Comparisons are odious. We have to choose carefully when we buy things on the first floor. But she went directly to the second floor. She's really rich. Strange. When Miss Chu came last time, she was accompanied by the people from the Mu clan. Why didn't I see them this time? Everyone was discussing, but it had nothing to do with Chu Luiyue. Although it was quite satisfying to kill Mu Qinghe, it had to be said that she was more confident in spending her own money. Besides, it was really difficult for her to spend all her money now. The second floor had always been deserted, and there was not a single customer today. Chu Luiyue seemed to have booked the whole place. Yuling glanced at her and said tentatively, Miss Chu, you can choose whatever you like. You were shocked at the entrance today, so everything you buy today will be 30% off. Originally, he didn't want to take the money, but it seemed that the higher-ups didn't want Miss Chu to know. It was not good to be too obvious. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 555. 30% discount? Isn't it said that the black gold card has a 15% discount? Chu Luiyue asked in confusion. Even after she spent nearly 100,000 white crystal coins last time, the discount did not increase. But there was a seat on the third floor. Yuling coughed. This because you bought more things this time. And, didn't you plan to buy other things? It's only right to give you a discount. In Shilling City, there aren't many guests as generous as you. The last sentence was true, and Yuling said it very sincerely. Chu Luiyue did not think much and nodded with a smile. Yes. The pavilion master of Chongshu Pavilion sold a lot of things here before, right? I want all the ones that are still in stock. Yuling was surprised. Really? You want all of them? Yes. Seeing that Chu Luiyue looked serious and did not seem to be joking, Yuling's expression also became much more serious. In that case, please wait for a moment, I'll ask them to get it. Because Elder Song came one after another, it will take some time to count all of them. I can wait. Chu Luiyue did not mind, and walked casually along the crystal cabinet. There were indeed a lot of rare medicinal herbs. The 100 Herbs building was really good in this aspect. No wonder they were so confident. After Yuling finished instructing the servant and came back, Chu Luiyue looked at the medicinal herbs in the crystal cabinet and asked casually. By the way, General Manager you just said that Elder Song came one after another. How long has it been? Yuling thought for a moment. About half a year. At first, he was quite shocked by this matter, so he had a deep impression of it. More than half a year. How much damage did the Chongshu Pavilion suffer to cause Yuchi Song to be in such a state? It was no wonder that Jiuxing Alliance was tempted to take over. I'm afraid that the Chongshu Pavilion is not having a good time in Shilling now. It seems that Miss Chu is very interested in Elder Song's things? Yuling asked. Chu Luiyue wasn't afraid of being questioned. Manager you may not know this, but I am now a disciple of the Chongshu Pavilion. News of what happened in Exanli Garden had not yet spread, so it was normal that Yuling did not know about it. As expected, Yuling was stunned for a moment. Are you saying that after the Wanzhong competition, you chose the Chongshu Pavilion? Didn't they say that they could choose any of the major sects? Moreover, Chu Luiyue was number 1. Wouldn't it be easy for him to go to any school? Why did he choose the Chongshu Pavilion? Chu Luiyue nodded. Yuling had always been good with words, but he didn't know what to say at this time. Congratulate him? Entering the current Chongshu Pavilion was really not something worth congratulating. Say it's a pity. Obviously this was Chu Luiyue's choice. Chu Luiyue had already expected such a reaction from him, so she didn't take it to heart and chose a few herbs that she liked. Yuling followed beside her. He wanted to explain a thing or two to her, but he soon realized that he was useless. Chu Luiyue was very straightforward when it came to buying things. She would often buy whatever she liked. Occasionally, she would ask a question or two, such as the age. Moreover, her guesses were very accurate. Gradually, Yuling finally confirmed that the situation that was reported previously was not exaggerated. Chu Luiyue could indeed be considered proficient in this field. But why did she need so many precious herbs? According to her current age, it would be a little difficult for her to refine these herbs. However, Yuling did not ask. Chu Luiyue chose a few more herbs. Then, a servant organized Yuchi Song's things and sent them over. With a rough glance, there were at least dozens of things. Chu Luiyue opened a few boxes and took a look. As expected, they were all very familiar things. She really didn't know how Yuchi Song felt when he sold all these things. Chu Luiyue sighed softly in her heart. She didn't look at them anymore, and put them all into the interspatial ring. Everything was settled together. Yuling personally made a list, counted it, and said with a smile, after the discount, it's a total of 1,050,000 white crystal coins. Even though the surrounding manservants already had a premonition, when they heard this number, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Chu Luiyue handed over an interspatial ring that she had just taken from Jian Fengqi. Sorry to trouble you, General Manager you. Yuling took the interspatial ring, looked down, and raised his eyebrows slightly. This was a special interspatial ring of Dragon Teeth Mountain. He had only seen it in Jian Fengqi's hands. Could this money be from Jian Fengqi? But he quickly suppressed the doubts in his heart, and took out the corresponding amount of white crystal coins. When he took it away, he deliberately glanced at Chu Luiyue. She looked relaxed as if she didn't care about the 1 million white crystal coins at all. Tut. Her bearing alone was more powerful than many disciples of aristocratic families. No wonder. Miss Chu, you have spent more than 1 million white crystal coins in the 100 Herbs building. A private room will be opened for you on the 3rd floor. It will be yours forever. Would you like to have a look now? Chu Liuyue's eyes flashed with surprise. So fast. Yuling's eyes flickered slightly. Of course, he couldn't tell her that he had been busy with this matter since he received the order from above. The efficiency of the 100 Herbs building has always been like this. Chu Liyue thought about it and refused. I won't go today. I'll come back another day. She had been outside for long enough today. It was time to go back. Yuling personally saw her out of the gate of the 100 Herbs building. It was not until Chu Liuyue's figure disappeared that Yuling exhaled softly. Recalling the scene just now, he felt a little conflicted. That interspatial ring. Thousands of miles away, at the top of the floating island, there was a majestic palace that had been standing there for a long time. Soldiers in heavy armor and holding long sabers stood on both sides. The atmosphere was majestic. A tall and slender figure was walking toward the main entrance of the hall. It was Rong Xiao. He had changed into a black brocade robe today. The collar was embroidered with gold thread. The cuffs were embroidered with clouds, and a black cloak was draped over his shoulders. If Chu Liyue was here, she would find that Rong Xiao seemed to have changed into a different person. The aura that was once as gentle as jade was swept away, and in its place was absolute coldness and majesty. He killed decisively, and looked down on everyone else. Rong Xiao was like a sheathed sword. He hid his sharpness and was gentle and reserved. But now, he was like a saber filled with a murderous aura. With a light wave he could tear the world apart. Finally he stood in front of the soldiers. Everyone knelt on one knee and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Your Highness. Rong Xiao's eyes were as cold as a saber as they swept across the crowd. The unparalleled palace sent people to assassinate I with the intention of rebellion. The evidence is conclusive. They should be punished. Today, I will personally go to war against the unparalleled palace. Kill them all. Yes, Your Highness. Kill. 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 Shouts shook the sky. Yan Qing and Umo, who were standing behind Rong Xiao, looked at each other. There were many people who coveted the position of His Highness. In the past few years, there had been a lot of trouble. But this was the first time that His Highness had issued a kill order. They did not know what the people sent by the unparalleled palace had done to make His Highness want to kill them at all costs. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 556. Tianling Palace. Huayang Palace. Elder Duanmu, what's the result of the investigation? Sheng Guanwan asked nervously. Duanmu Chun shook his head. Don't worry, Third Princess. Everything is normal in the Tianling God realm. The Long Yuan sword hasn't been taken away. Sheng Guanwan's heart finally settled down. That's good, that's good. Duanmu Chun looked at her strangely. Third Princess, why did you suddenly think of this? If the Long Yuan sword isn't here, the Tianling God realm shouldn't be able to continue existing. Sheng Guanwan forced a smile. I know. It's just that I've been feeling uneasy ever since the Tianling God realm was opened for the Wanzhong competition. I feel that the ancestors will blame me for this. That's why I wanted to ask Elder Duanmu to confirm that it didn't affect the Tianling God realm in any way. She patted her chest and frowned. If it's really my fault that the Tianling God realm suffered any losses, then I really can't absolve myself from the blame. Duanmu Chun looked at her and sighed. The third princess was actually quite good in all aspects, but she didn't have the courage to do things. She was the one who suggested opening the Tianling God realm back then. But she was still the one who was worried, and even regretful now. If the princess was still here, this probably wouldn't have happened. Unfortunately, the third princess was in power now and had absolute authority. Although there were other princes and princesses in the royal family, no one was more suitable for the current position than the third princess. If His Majesty couldn't wake up, the third princess would very likely take the throne directly. Third princess, you're thinking too much. You're also thinking for the entire Tianling dynasty. The Tianling God realm. He paused, feeling a little hesitant. Actually, after he entered the Tianling God realm, he felt that something was wrong. Although the Long Yuan sword was still there, the world was in chaos, and it didn't look like it had been silent for 1,000 years. However, he had never entered before, so he wasn't sure what was going on. What's wrong, Elder Duanmu? Shangguan asked. Duanmu Chun suppressed the suspicion in his heart. Nothing. I just feel that you might feel more at ease if you personally enter the Tianling God realm to take a look. Shangguan's expression froze for a moment before she moved her lips. I've been concentrating on cultivating and preparing for a breakthrough, so I don't have the time for now. Let's talk about it after a while. Duanmu Chun did not suspect anything and bowed respectfully. Yes, after you successfully break through this time, you can try to summon the Long Yuan sword. If you can succeed. He paused and swallowed the rest of his words. A hint of resentment flashed through Shangguan's eyes, but there was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. I understand what Elder Duanmu means. Duanmu Chun bowed and left. When his figure disappeared outside the hall, the smile on Shangguan's face quickly disappeared. She knew very well what Duanmu Chun meant. Since her father was unconscious, she was the eldest in the royal family. It was only right for her to take over everything. Although she had full authority over all matters of the Tianling dynasty, she did not have the right to do so. At the end of the day, she was only using the identity of the third princess. The throne of the Tianling dynasty was not only passed down to the princes. If the princess was outstanding enough, she could also fight for it. Just like how her father had planned to officially abdicate the throne during his wedding in Shangguanyu. If she wanted to take the next step, there were only two ways. First, her father had passed away, and she would naturally inherit the throne. However, the problem now was that not only could they not let her father pass away quietly, but they also had to think of a way to wake him up. Therefore, this path was not going to work no matter what. Second, she had to prove her ability and forcefully take over the throne. However, she was not Shangguanyu. Without the Tianjing Yuan meridian, the people below her would definitely not be willing to submit to her. If she could summon the Long Yuan sword, it would be enough to prove that she was qualified to sit on that throne. A Long Yuan sword would be enough to defeat all the rumors and slanders. However, not to mention summoning the Long Yuan sword, even entering the Tianling God realm, was a difficult task for her. Shangguan was frustrated. Chani, bring Yang Qiner to me. Yang Qin arrived at Huayang Palace and saw the expressionless Shangguan sitting at the head of the table. An ominous feeling rose in her heart. She walked over and knelt down. Shangguan looked at her and sneered. Do you know why I called you here? Yang Qin braced herself and said, It's the Long Yuan sword. Shangguan said slowly. That's right. I've already checked it. I've already checked. And the Long Yuan sword is still in the Tianling God realm. I knew it. How could this be? Yang Qin instantly panicked. Impossible. This is impossible. I saw it clearly at that time. Are you doubting me? Shangguan asked. Yang Qin almost bit off her tongue. And no. Shangguan stood up and walked slowly to her. Raise your head. Yang Qin raised her head stiffly. Smack. There was a loud slap. Yang Qin was directly slapped to the ground, and half of her face quickly became red and swollen. How dare you make a fool out of me like this? You must be tired of living. Yang Qin covered her face, and her voice trembled. Be but third princess Ning Jiaojiao also, smack. There was another slap. Who is Ning Jiaojiao and who are you? Shangguan found it laughable. Ning Jiaojiao was the only daughter of the Xianfeng Hall's hallmaster. She couldn't really do anything to Ning Jiaojiao. However, an insignificant Yang Qin it didn't matter. Shangguan stared at Yang Qin and suddenly said, I remember that you have a superior Daijing Yuan meridian, right? In the evening, Chu Luyue returned to the house and was surprised to find a freshly written plaque hanging above the door. Chu residence. It was obvious that it was Yuqi Song's handwriting. She pushed the door open and entered. She immediately realized that the entire house had changed. The dejected aura from before was swept away. She had just taken 2 steps when she saw Chang Wanzhou walk out from the corner. He was actually holding a rag in his hand. Yi Ranran followed behind him. His sleeves were rolled up, and he was dragging a broom. Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched. What are you doing? Yi Ranran smiled shyly, and 2 small dimples appeared on his round little face. Luyu, you're back? We're tidying up the courtyard. What do you think? Chu Liyue could obviously see that they were tidying up the courtyard. The key was, how did you convince little Zhou to do these things? He looked like he really had nothing to do with these things. According to his personality, he really didn't seem like he would agree to do these things. Yi Ranran smiled brightly and said, actually, I originally planned to do it alone. But Wanzhou took the initiative to help, so I let him do it. Chu Liyue looked at Chang Wanzhou in shock. Chang Wanzhou turned his face away awkwardly and hid the rag behind his back as he said coldly, I cleaned your room. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 557. Chu Liyue couldn't help but laugh and walked over. You don't have to do this. It's my room. I can clean it myself. Chang Wanzhou looked at her strangely. But I'm your follower now. So this is what I should do. Chang Wanzhou said firmly. Although he hadn't done this for a long time, it didn't mean that he couldn't. You can go and take a look. If there's anything you're not satisfied with, I'll change it. Chu Liyue blinked and suddenly realized something. Little Zhou, don't tell me you think that as a follower, you have to do these things? Chang Wanzhou said affirmatively yes. Otherwise, what's the use of having a follower? Chu Liyue looked at his confident face and felt a headache coming on. She didn't know what the person he met back then was thinking, teaching him such things. The more she looked at it, the more it seemed that he treated Chang Wanzhou as a little servant. But every time that person was mentioned, Chang Wanzhou's expression would always be much gentler. Although he never said it, Chu Liyue could feel that he missed that person very much. That was why he traveled thousands of miles and went through so much trouble to come all the way from Nanjiang to West Hill. That person must have treated Chang Wanzhou sincerely, which was why he couldn't forget him. Thinking of this, Chu Liyue smiled. Although you're my follower now, I won't ask anything of you. In the future, you can do these things if you want to. If you don't want to, don't. Do you understand? Otherwise, she would always have the illusion that she was bullying a child. Chang Wanzhou thought for a while. You don't like me doing this? Or do you think I'm not doing well? Chu Liyue smiled helplessly and rubbed his hair. It seemed that this child couldn't understand what she really meant for a while. No, you're doing very well. Chang Wanzhou looked doubtful. But you haven't seen it yet. Yi Ranran said excitedly. Yes. Lu, you go and take a look. Wanzhou is very clean. You did even better than me. Chu Liyue was speechless. Was this something to be proud of? He even provoked 2 geniuses with the Daijing Yuan Meridian to compete here? Helpless, she could only raise her hands and surrender. I'll go take a look now. Come quickly. Yi Ranran ran to the front excitedly. Chang Wanzhou habitually followed behind Chu Liyue. After walking for a while, he arrived at her room. Although it was her room, she hadn't had the time to go in and take a look. Under the gaze of the 2 people beside him, Chu Liyue pushed open the door and walked in. When he saw the situation in the room, Chu Liyue was shocked. Isn't this too clean? Every place was as clean as new, and even the ground could clearly reflect her own shadow. She didn't take this matter to heart before, but now that she saw it, she finally understood why Yi Ranran was so excited. Chang Wanzhou seemed to be extraordinarily outstanding in this aspect. Chu Liyue couldn't help but look back at Chang Wanzhou and ask suspiciously, Little Wanzhou, be honest. Xiaozhou, tell me honestly, have you been doing this kind of thing for decades? Is that why you're so proficient? Chu Liyue couldn't even think of a suitable word to describe it. Chang Wanzhou's face darkened. Chu Liyue coughed and walked inside. There was a small wooden coffee table on the small couch by the window. Chu Liyue walked closer. There was a chessboard and 2 jars of chess pieces on it. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Where did this kid find these things? They're placed quite well. Suddenly, her gaze froze, and she picked up a cup of ginger tea beside the chessboard in surprise. Little Zhou, how did you know that I like to place ginger tea beside the chessboard when I play chess? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 558. Chang Wanzhou was stunned. I've always placed it like this. Always. Chu Luyue immediately understood. Did you do the same when you were with that person in the past? She likes to do this too? Chang Wanzhou replied. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows. There were many people who liked to play chess and drink tea. However, there were very few people who liked to put ginger tea beside the chessboard. At least among the people Chu Luyue knew. She had never seen anyone else like this except for herself. In that case, it's quite a coincidence. That person was called Yu. And she was also called Yu. That person liked to put ginger tea beside the chess jar. And she liked it too. It seemed that it was fate that she met Chang Wanzhou. Chu Luyue rubbed the teacup in her hand. The tea inside was still hot, and white smoke was rising in spirals. There was a hint of spiciness in the faint bitterness, and it was especially refreshing. She suddenly became curious about that person. If that person was still alive, it should be quite interesting to meet him. Chang Wanzhou was thinking about something, and he was a little distracted. Chu Luyue called out to him twice before he came back to his senses. What? Chu Luyue said. I said let's all rest and adjust for today. We'll go to Chongshu Pavilion tomorrow. Yu Qisong had already gone back, and she specifically left Yi Ranran behind to help them. Therefore, Yi Ranran would also stay here tonight. Although this courtyard was not as big as Mu Mansion, it was more than enough for a few more people to stay. Yi Ranran quickly left. Chang Wanzhou seemed to have something to say, and stayed behind. Chu Luyue walked over and asked with a smile. If you have anything to ask, just ask. Chang Wanzhou's back was facing the door, and the afterglow shone on his soft blonde hair, making it glow brilliantly. Even his ears seemed to be transparent, outlining the contours of his exquisite face. However, his facial features were hidden in the shadows, half lit and half dark. It was difficult to see his features clearly. Only his eyes shone with a mysterious and obscure light. He was silent for a long time before he asked softly, Have you been to Nanjiang before? Chu Luyue shook her head. No. The light in Chang Wanzhou's eyes was instantly extinguished like a candle flame. Chu Luyue's heart inexplicably, as if it was weighed down by something heavy. I understand. After saying that, Chang Wanzhou turned around to leave. Just as he took a step forward, he suddenly stopped. Do you think she doesn't remember me? His voice was very soft, almost dispersing in the wind. His usual cold tone was gone, and his usual stubborn tone was gone as well. At this time, Chang Wanzhou was like a child who had suddenly lost his direction. He did not know where to go. Chu Luyue looked at his back. The young man's excessively thin figure was hidden in his loose and rough clothes swaying. A deep sense of loneliness emanated from his body and shrouded him. How can that be? Chu Luyue said softly. You are so obedient and outstanding. She will not forget you. If she knows that you are looking for her, she will definitely come looking for you. Chang Wanzhou was silent for a long time. You are right. She will not forget me. Without me, who will make tea for her? Who will help her grind the chess pieces? His tone was much firmer, as if he was trying to convince someone. She will not forget me. With that, he left without looking back. His footsteps were hurried, as if he was worried that something would catch up to him. Chu Luyue's lips moved, but in the end, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. After all, this was Chang Wanzhou's own business. When things settled down here, perhaps he could help him look for her. Chu Luyue stood there for a while before returning to his room and began to refine pills. As her strength broke through to the 4th rank, she also officially became a 4th-rank celestial physician. As a result, it was much easier for her to refine pills than before. After she finished refining 3 pills, she stopped and began to recuperate. It was not until she circulated her force 3 times that she finally stopped and lay down to rest. A peaceful night's sleep. Early the next morning, Chu Luyue and the other two went to the Chongshu Pavilion together. The Chongshu Pavilion was located on Qingyuan Mountain. Shilin City was extremely large. There were mountains inside and outside the city. The positions of the various sects were different, and they were quite far from each other. Therefore, they generally lived in peace. Qingyuan Mountain was located in the northeast corner of Shilin City. What was special about it was that it was a lone peak. However, because the origin power on the mountain was dense, it was a good place to cultivate. As soon as Chu Luyue and the others arrived at the foot of Qingyuan Mountain, Chu Luyue realized that something was wrong. In the past, there was an extremely powerful defensive barrier on Qingyuan Mountain. However, although the barrier was still there, the power on it was obviously much weaker than before. Chu Luyue could not help but ask, "This barrier seems a little strange." Oh, you're talking about this. This barrier wasn't like this in the past. But a year ago, someone barged into the Chongshu Pavilion and destroyed the barrier. Later on, the pavilion master and elders had to work hard to restore it. However, this defensive barrier requires a lot of manpower and resources to maintain. Our Chongshu Pavilion is in a difficult situation now, so we can only barely maintain it like this. After saying that, Yi Ranran saw Chu Luyue's complicated expression and hurriedly said, "However, don't worry. Although this barrier isn't as strong as before, the pavilion master and the pavilion master are still guarding it." However, with the pavilion master and the various elders guarding Clear Source Mountain, there won't be any danger. Chu Luyue smiled bitterly in her heart. Only Yi Ranran could say that so calmly. In fact, if a sect was not forced into a corner, how could they not even maintain the most basic defensive barrier? It could be seen that the situation in the Chongshu Pavilion was worse than she had expected. "It's fine. It's just my first time here, so I'm a little curious. Let's continue. The pavilion master and the others should be waiting for us." Yi Ranran did not suspect anything and led the way. There was only one stone staircase up the mountain, extending from the foot of the mountain to the top. Chu Luyue and Chang Wanzhou followed behind Yi Ranran. After walking for a short while, Chu Luyue stopped in her tracks. There was a trace of dried dark red blood on the steps beneath her feet. It seemed to have been there for a while. She looked to the side along the bloodstain, and her pupils constricted. There was a large amount of blood scattered around, but as time passed it gradually dimmed. Coupled with the dust, stones, and other things, it was hard to tell if one did not look carefully. However, based on this bloodstain, it was not hard to imagine what kind of intense battle had broken out here. This is only the foot of the mountain. Chu Luyue's heart skipped a beat. I wonder what the scene at the top of the mountain will be like. To be able to cause the Chongshu Pavilion, which used to stand at the peak of the world, to fall all the way here. How terrifying. She took a deep breath, retracted her gaze, and continued to walk up. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 559. Along the way up, the messy bloodstains that had long dried up could be seen everywhere. Some of the steps and the surrounding scenery were also damaged. Chu Luyue looked at them one by one, and her heart sank. Yi Ranran was obviously used to it, and didn't take it to heart. Chu Luyue couldn't help but ask, "Ranran, how long have you been in Chongshu Pavilion?" Yi Ranran thought for a moment. "More than 2 years, right? But in the past, I mostly followed Master to gain experience outside and rarely came back. A year ago, after the accident in Chongshu Pavilion, Master and I stayed in Qingyuan Mountain." "Your master is?" My master is Elder Xia Yi, one of the 4 great elders of Chongshu Pavilion. But the other 3 elders are. So now, Master is in charge of many things in Chongshu Pavilion. When Yi Ranran mentioned this, a trace of sadness flashed across his face. The other elders are also very good people, but Chu Luyue pursed her lips. Of the 4 great elders, only Elder Xia Yi was left. No wonder everyone didn't have high hopes for Chongshu Pavilion. Without the powerhouses guarding it, the current Chongshu Pavilion naturally couldn't be compared to the past. She heard that Yu Qi Song had also suffered serious injuries, and hadn't recovered yet. When she was with Yuchi-song previously, she vaguely sensed that something was wrong with his body, but she didn't ask in detail. If the pavilion master and the 4 great elders were like this, then there was no need to mention the others. Ran, you're here. When they were halfway up the mountain, a young man appeared in their line of sight. Yi Ran looked up and waved happily. Senior brother Lu, why are you here? Lu Jiao's gaze swept across Chu Luyue and Chang Wanzhou, and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. The pavilion master asked me to pick you up. These 2 must be the 2 junior brothers who won the 1st and 2nd place in the Wanzhong competition. Invite them in. The pavilion master, the elders, and your fellow disciples are all waiting for you. Chu Luyue's eyebrows twitched in the face of Lu Jiao's enthusiasm. Even if it was to welcome him, coming halfway up the mountain to pick him up was a bit. Also, didn't he just say that the entire Chongxu pavilion was waiting for them? Because the 2 of them. Did they have to? At this time, Chu Luyue naturally didn't know that since the incident more than a year ago, no new disciples had been admitted to the Chongxu pavilion. Now that they suddenly had a junior brother and a junior sister, who were particularly powerful, the entire Chongxu pavilion was inevitably excited. He had gone through a lot of trouble to get this mission. Little junior sister, little junior brother, your accommodations on the mountain have long been prepared. According to the cabinet master, you have already found a residence in Shilling City, but you are still welcome to stay on the mountain for a while. Our Chongxu pavilion is not so rigid. We have always been very free in this aspect. You can go up or down the mountain as you please. Just pay attention to your safety. By the way, we've been growing some medicinal herbs on the mountain recently. I heard that little junior sister is also a celestial physician, right? In the future, if you want to refine pills, just look for us if you need any medicinal herbs. As Lu Jiao rambled on, he looked at Chu Luyue and Chang Wanzhou's expressions, as if he was afraid that they would be unhappy. Chu Luyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She had met Lu Jiao twice in the past. He was also Elder Xiaoyi's disciple. At that time, she only thought that he was restrained and polite. His talent was not bad, but she never knew that he was actually a chatterbox. However, in the current Chongxu pavilion, even the pavilion master Yuchi-song had to personally sell things to raise money, let alone the people below. For Lu Jiao to say that, it was obvious that he really liked the 2 of them. Yi Ran listened from the side and didn't feel annoyed at all. Instead, he also chimed in and occasionally expressed his own opinions. In short, after knowing that Chu Luyue and Chang Wanzhou had chosen Chongxu Pavilion, the entire Chongxu Pavilion took action to satisfy the 2 of them. Were they afraid that the 2 of them would run away? Chu Luyue followed them up and agreed. Chang Wanzhou was straightforward and didn't say much from the beginning to the end. Lu Jiao thought to himself, this little junior sister is kind and amiable. She always has a smile on her face and looks very easy to get along with. Although little junior brother is a little cold, he seems to listen to little junior sister. In that case, it's not bad. On the way, Chu Luyue chatted with the 2 of them and heard a lot of news. When they were about to reach the top of the mountain, Lu Jiao suddenly shouted, little junior sister and little junior brother are here. His voice was full of vigor, and it reverberated throughout the entire mountain. Chu Luyue's mouth twitched as an ominous premonition surged in his heart. Indeed, in the next moment, he saw a group of people suddenly appear in front of him. At a glance, there were at least dozens of people. Little junior sister, little junior brother, you're finally here. We've been waiting for the whole morning. That's right. Hey, make way. I can't see them anymore. Who asked you to run so slowly? Lu Jiao shouted again. All of you calm down. Don't scare little junior brother and little junior sister. Chu Luyue. Chang Wanzhou. Chu Luyue couldn't help but look up at the sky. They had come here early in the morning. It was actually still early in the morning. Why had they waited for the whole morning? Also, what kind of rare object were the 2 of them? Why were there so many people here? He thought that they were just coming up the mountain to acknowledge a master, but he didn't expect. Let's go. The pavilion master and the others are already waiting for you. Lu Xiao urged with an excited expression. Chang Wanzhou finally couldn't help but whisper. Don't tell me you chose the Chongshu Pavilion because of this? Chu Luiyue looked at him murderously. Chang Wanzhou shut his mouth. Then, under Lu Xiao and Yi Ranran's enthusiastic introduction, Chu Luiyue and Lu Xiao greeted the many senior brothers and senior sisters in the Chongshu Pavilion. By the time they finally broke out of the encirclement, Chu Luiyue's forehead was already covered in sweat. Fortunately, more people didn't come. Otherwise, it would have taken a day just to recognize them, Chu Luiyue muttered. Lu Xiao, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped and looked back at her with a complicated expression. Little junior sister, actually, those people just now are almost all the disciples left in the Chongshu Pavilion. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Lu Xiao in disbelief. What? In the past, there were 600 to 700 disciples in the Chongshu Pavilion. Why were there only so many left now? Lu Xiao saw how shocked she was and hurriedly said, Actually, there are still some who haven't returned. I'll introduce them to you in the future. Chu Luiyue asked. Senior brother Lu, how many disciples are left in the entire Chongshu Pavilion? Lu Xiao sighed. About 100. Chu Luiyue sucked in a breath of cold air. The casualties from more than a year ago were actually so heavy. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 560. Lu Xiao hurriedly waved his hand. Actually, that's not it. Although there were heavy casualties that time, it wasn't to this extent. It's just that after that, the Chongshu Pavilion plummeted. The pavilion master felt that forcing them to stay would only delay their future, so he ordered them to leave. If anyone doesn't want to stay here, they can take a fee from the pavilion master and leave. Some of them did leave at that time, but most of them left one after another in the past year or so. It would be too presumptuous to say that they didn't have any feelings for the Chongshu Pavilion. However, the current Chongshu Pavilion was indeed no longer the Chongshu Pavilion of the past. Chu Luiyue was silent for a while. That's not the only reason, right? Even if the Chongshu Pavilion encountered these accidents and fell to this extent, it shouldn't be enough to dismiss the disciples. Lu Xiao was conflicted for a long time. He wanted to say something but stopped. Little junior sister was very smart. It didn't seem appropriate if he didn't say anything. What if she also wanted to leave after he said it? Yi Ranran couldn't bear it anymore and said in a low voice, Lu Yu, there's something you don't know. In fact, the pavilion master did this for their own good. For more than a year, the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion have been ostracized and made things difficult for them everywhere. They can't cultivate properly at all. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. Someone is targeting the Chongshu Pavilion? Yi Ranran and Lu Xiao looked at each other and nodded slightly. Who has such a powerful force in West Hill? Chu Luiyue frowned slightly, but he kept thinking. In fact, there were only a few people who could do it. It's the third. Lu Wanzhou, you're here. Before Chu Luiyue could ask, Yuqi Song and Elder Xiai walked out of the hall. Elder Xiai's eyes lit up when he saw the two of them. He immediately walked over and sized them up carefully. TSK. Pavilion Master, you've really brought back two rare seedlings this time. Previously, he didn't quite believe it, but now that he saw it with his own eyes, he was finally at ease. Over the past year, not to mention geniuses, even cultivators with average aptitude refused to step into the Chongshu Pavilion. Now 2 young geniuses with the Daijing Yuan Meridian had come. It was really raining red from the sky. Weiqi Song laughed as well, and the wrinkles on his wrinkled face seemed to have deepened as he laughed. I told you you'd love it. These are the 2 who performed the best in this year's Wanzhong competition. Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou saluted. Greetings, Pavilion Master, Elder Xiaoyi. Elder Xiaoyi chuckled and couldn't help but ask. He said that the 2 of you chose the Chongshu Pavilion on your own initiative. Is that true? Chu Luiyue held back his laughter. Of course it's true. Elder Xiaoyi stroked his beard in disbelief. Yuqi Song walked over and said, You can take a look around today. You can decide who to take as your master after you've gained a certain understanding of the Chongshu Pavilion. He paused for a moment before he continued, pretending to be relaxed. Initially, there were a few elders to choose from, but now, there's only me and Xiaoyi left. Chu Liyue's heart ached slightly, but he nodded anyway. Thank you, Pavilion Master and Elder Xiaoyi. Then, under Lu Jiao and Yi Ranran's guidance, Chu Liyue and Chang Wanzhou began to observe the Chongshu Pavilion. Chu Liyue had been to this place many times in the past, but it was very different now. Traces of a battle could be seen everywhere, and many things had been damaged. Although a year had already passed, it could still be seen how desperate that battle was from this. After walking around, Chu Liyue felt as if something was stuck in his heart, and he felt very uncomfortable. Almost all of the tens of thousands of books in the Chongshu Pavilion had been taken away, and they were all extremely precious prescriptions and martial arts techniques. The precious medicinal herbs had also been looted, and not a single one was left. All that was left was a medicinal garden that had just been planted. Although they had planted a lot of medicinal herbs, most of them took 100 years to grow. These herbs had only been planted a year ago, and they would have to wait for a long time. Chu Liyue looked at the medicinal garden that had obviously just been renovated and asked hesitantly, "Senior Brother Lu, what do you mean? You said that we can come to you if we need any medicinal herbs. Are these the ones you're referring to?" Lu Jiao scratched his head, looking a little embarrassed. Well, although these herbs have just been planted and can't be used for the time being, if little junior sister and little junior brother need anything, just let us know. We'll do our best to satisfy you. Chu Liyue looked thoughtful. So, Senior Brother Lu, you're saying we should buy them outside? She suspected that these people might not even be able to afford the medicinal herbs she needed to refine pills. Most of the people in the Chongshu Pavilion are celestial physician. There should be a place dedicated to growing medicinal herbs. Why did they just open this medicinal garden? In the past, she had taken a lot of medicinal herbs from here. But why didn't they mention it now? Lu Jiao sighed. Little junior sister, you guessed right. The Chongshu Pavilion did have a very large medicinal garden in the past. But, after that incident, the medicinal garden was destroyed. Not only were the medicinal herbs inside all damaged, but even that large area of land was affected and became a barren land. Now this new medicinal garden is one of the few clean places on Qingyuan Mountain. Chu Liyue frowned. How could this be? Who exactly was it that was so ruthless to the Chongshu Pavilion? No wonder Yuchi-song was forced to such a state. No wonder so many disciples in the Chongshu Pavilion left. Who could bear to stay in such a state? At the mention of this matter, Lu Jiao and Yi Ranran's mood became much gloomier. The few of them quieted down. After a short silence, Chu Liyue said, "Senior Brother Lu, I want to go to the original medicinal garden to take a look." Lu Jiao was shocked. Why are you going there? That place is already barren. There's nothing to see there. Moreover, the pavilion master has already given the order not to allow disciples to go there casually. A trace of disappointment flashed across Chu Liyue's face. Yi Ranran blinked and whispered, "Senior Brother Lu, if Lu Yu wants to take a look, let's bring her there. It's just a look. It's nothing." The pavilion master liked Lu Yu and Yi Ranran so much. Even if he knew, he probably wouldn't punish them. Lu Jiao hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. "All right, but after you go, you can't act on your own. We'll only take a look and come back." Chu Liyue immediately nodded in agreement. "I'll listen to Senior Brother Lu." Then, the few of them took a detour to another road and walked towards the former medicinal garden. There were very few people in the Chongshu Pavilion now. They didn't meet anyone along the way. This made Lu Jiao and Yi Ranran secretly heave a sigh of relief. The further they went, the more deserted and lonely it became. Finally, after about a quarter of an hour, they finally arrived. "That's it." Lu Jiao pointed at a barren land in front of him and said, "Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."